Hello everyone, I'm very glad that you listened to my story. Please give me a follow and like the video if you enjoyed it. Feel free to comment and provide feedback so I can improve the sound quality. Yes, I will now continue the unfinished story. Chapter 86. After laughing out loud for a while, Wu Yan had just about enough laughing when his lips started to become sore. His eyes showed that he had planned to continue but stopped the thought. That's because he knows that they may have become stronger but they are still far off from being truly powerful. The path to the top has just begun. Hinagiku and Mikoto understand it as well. Mikoto in particular could feel the grind ahead. Just look at Ikaru's and accelerator, they are undoubtedly way better than her. To save the sisters would require her to be at least tier 8, i.e. level 70. Only then would she have the qualification, and make no hasty guess, for it is only a qualification to challenge, not a guarantee of advantage. That's because even if they achieve their objective of saving the sisters, they would still need to make provisions against Academy City to make certain that the sisters are saved. And, to that end, there exists a need to get stronger. Meanwhile, Hinagiku's reason of being on this path is much simpler: to catch up to Wu Yan and stand by his side, and most importantly be there in times of need. That is all. Hinagiku looked at the bodies on the ground while frowning and hugged Lyran, who is being completely obedient. Yan, I think we should leave this place quickly, I don't like this kind of place. Mikoto frowned as well and simply looked away after a quick glance over the ground. She tacitly asked him to make the call. Let's move forward. Knowing that the two girls still need some time to get used to this kind of scene, he didn't even give it much thought and steered the group forward. They already know the cause of death for this Ma.S death, so there's no point in staying any longer. En route, the path are littered with bodies. Although the number decreased as they moved on, they still kept their guards up. The main reason is that the deceased are stronger than the ones they encountered before. The ones they saw before were mainly those tier 5 and below. But as they moved deeper and deeper into this place, the deceased ones are those that could pose a danger to them, namely tier 6, and these people were many in number. Tier 6, the same tier CLA.S as Wu Yan. They are only approximately 100 of these individuals, and they have spotted approximate 30 dead on the floor already. Which is why they are scanning the whole place using system scanning function. Ikaru's deserves special mention for simultaneously using her own scan in addition to the systems to prevent anything happening to Wu Yan and company. Perhaps among them, Lyran's the one with the easiest mood. After all, she did insist on coming here while throwing a tantrum before, and now that she's here she reckons it's best if she stay quiet in Hinagiku's arms to lessen the burden on them. It's due to this nature of hers that can read mood that she's here on Wu Yan's consent. Of course, being obedient and quiet isn't the only factor. He also bought a bunch of gadgets from the system to make sure she would absolutely come out of this with no harm, otherwise he could never bring such a defenseless kid into this kind of place. Rather than calling it a stone sage, one might call it a stone labyrinth, for that would be more apt, seeing as they winded about through the curvy and maze-like place. They are that close to getting confused at turning about so many times. And right then, many more familiar-looking stone appeared. To H.E.L.L with A.S. Summing their normal stones, he signaled them to stop and moved back a distance with raised eyebrow. Can't blame them, their experience are fresh as H.E.L.L, the bigger the stones the stronger the stone spiders within them. What's more, the stones they are looking at right now is bigger than before. The ominous cracking sound came and soon followed the thuds. Good G.O.D, the Fugalies are here again. Wu Yan and company subconsciously stepped back when they saw the stone spiders. All of them are big stone spiders, no mini-me. Each one of them are level 40 stone spiders. Bitterly shrugging, he reckons this is probably why the tier 6 individuals died. Cause of death, rushed like Psycho pilots in CSGO. Poor F.U.C.Ks. The treasure hunting party must have slain a lot of the spiders on the way. With their numbers, the ones they killed must be more than the ones Wu Yan and company killed. And yet, these spiders don't seem to have an end to them. He really wonder how did they survive this path. He guessed that most likely they forcibly tore through the encirclement. They do have the capability in the form of tier 7 to do so. Also, the fact that they are seeing stone spiders here means that they did not kill off all the hostiles. This hints that they either did not bother or could not deal with it and ran. He's secretly glad he brought along Ikaru's this time. Without her they might have to rely on the items to get them through the onslaught. The stone spiders did not give them any room to breathe. They moved their stony slender legs and came at them. Going into Ura.N.U.S mode, Ikaru's deployed her protective barrier to cover for them. The oncoming wave got sent flying faster than they came. Mikoto. Now. Finish them with this opening. Arms wide, lightning flashed and entered the ground where he stood, ignoring the hard surface of the ground. Mikoto understood his intention the moment she sees the electricity going it no the ground, and she channeled hers into the ground as well, except in bigger scale. Controlling the minute grains, the earth got torn asunder as they swirled around the both of them, forming a gigantic tide that dances as though they are blown by the wind. Countless blades of magnetized metal sand formed in mid-air and hovered above them. The sharp blades took aim and flew at the spiders. Before the spiders could hit the ground they got a follow-up blow from the both of them. A light flashed in Ikaru's eyes, and in a manner similar to the blades of iron sand countless missiles formed out of mid-air and flew at the spiders. Go! Iron sand swords! Artemis! The skies are filled with missiles and blades, it is raining with them. Before the spiders could hit the ground they turned into rubbles either because of the storm of blades or the missile Ma.S.Saker, either way they are dead, Jim. Rather than retreating the remaining stone spiders all went berserk and furiously employed the same strategy, rushing at them. And as a result, they were met with another round of missiles to turn into boorish decors for the place. He wryly laughed at the fact that they could deal with the troublesome stone spider legion that the treasure hunting team couldn't. Ikaros, what an operator at farming mobs. Chapter 87. Along the way, they encountered about another 10 more waves of stone spiders. They are all level 40 plus. Wu Yan silently cursed the treasure hunting team for not cleaning up properly. They didn't waste any time with the mob and dispatched them with the iron sand and missile salvo combo, not even giving the spiders any chance to get close enough to engage. If not because the spiders spa.w.net really quickly from the stones he might have blown them to bits before they could come out. He didn't do that for another good reason. Guess what, Hinajiku at level 49, tier 5 peak. This is within their expectation, they slow legions of stone spiders. He didn't know how the treasure hunting team fared against the legion of mobs, but he knows their own kill count is absolutely innumerable. The level 40 stone spiders form a significant portion of their kills. With such an amount, if it wasn't because the gap between tier required a lot of experience points to bridge, Hinajiku might have turned into a tier 6, who knows. At her level, Wu Yan had to rely on negative feedback from his ability, TL, Electromaster, to get to tier 6. He has also risen in levels as well, he's level 55 now. He's feeling intense emotions at this revelation. They're all the same group, how come she gets to shoot some 10 level plus and he has only risen by 5? F.U.C.King EXP gap, he wanted to cry but didn't have the tears for it. Well, that's just him though, if he is feeling like this how should Railgun who didn't increase in level at all feel? Jump off a tall building. They traverse quite a distance and they notice something, that is, there's no more dead bodies on the ground. There isn't any more bodies. Different from her past self, she is somewhat accustomed now but the bodies still make her feel uncomfortable. No more bodies, that means no one else died, and no further death means there's no more stone spiders ahead, right? TL, wait, the logic with this seems wrong. It might just be that the surviving ones didn't rush at the spiders like R.E.T.A.R.D and is currently hiding, or they could all be dead. Point being, no death does not equals no more hostiles. Still as kind as ever, those two, he grinned at the two girls who are glad at the situation. Just as he is going to say something, someone tugged at his shirt. Looking back he sees Ikaros pointing at a certain direction in front of him. Master, there is a large amount of life forms ahead, preliminary calculations determine them to be of the same treasure hunting group. Wu Yan and company flinched. Looks like we finally caught up with the group, said Hinajiku. Ikaros continued. Master, another large group of life forms has met up with the aforementioned group. Another large group of life forms. Are they stone spiders, Ikaros? Detecting the same signature but their strength varies, their C.U.Malative fighting power is stronger than the waves we encountered before. Wu Yan, Mikoto, and Hinajiku exchanged glances. Same signature, so to say they are stone spiders, but what she said is that they are stronger than before. Something that is stronger than the big Sotni spiders we have seen before. Yan, should we go and help? Since they are fighting against stronger enemies, it would surely be easier to fight along the group. She also didn't want to steal the stone spiders. Not to mention she hadn't really contributed much from the beginning. How could she have? The three basically wiped the legions off the face of Silveria with their storm of swords and missiles. She could only rely on her Kenjutsu to attack, and thus she has been doing nothing but CLA.S.Sick EXP leeching. Some might be delighted to just leech and do nothing, but she's not feeling that way at the very least, quite the opposite, it feels like she's an extra or something. Mikoto looks pumped, higher level spiders. More EXP for her. It's not very fun watching Wu Yan and Hinajiku rising in level when she didn't really move much relatively. In other words, she wants to level up as well. He glanced in front and then at the girls before silently musing for a while and then speaking up. I think it's better if we don't decide with haste. Let's go and check out the current situation before doing anything. See first before making any move. Are we not going to intervene? Said a slightly disappointed Mikoto with a sigh. This isn't very nice, is it? I mean, we did come here together. Hinajiku's hesitating about his decision. If they were to go there and be seen, just sitting on the sidelines is out of the question. If anything, the group fighting there will drag them into the fray by any means necessary, because their logic goes a little something like this: +1 player equals +1 meat shield. Not that Wu Yan and company is afraid of them or anything, they do have quite the lineup by their side, what with the peak tier 7 Mikato and tier 8 Ikaros. No big issue, but really the minute details and complications are off-putting overall. They might rely on their number to assert their opinion and impose it on them with malicious intentions, such as setting traps for them, for instance. It's obvious that within such a large group composed of many smaller units, their unity and interest aren't aligned very well. Therefore they are likely to screw each other over the first chance they get. H.E.L.L. They might even wish everybody but them die so they get to keep the treasure. Under this kind of context, if they were to waltz in, it is also foreseeable that they would get dragged into this S.H.I.T storm that is just waiting to happen. Like I said, we will be improvising based on the situation. He concluded with a clap. But what if they force us into fighting? Mikato lowered her head and crossed her arms in thought. When he heard her, he laughed. Well, if it's like that, then we just have to make sure they don't know we are there, won't we? Not noticing us. The two girls are a bit bewildered at his plan. But this tunnel is very plain in design, no doubt the same goes for whatever lays ahead. There's nowhere to hide, so how should we go about doing that? Suppose there are places to hide, the group in front has some tens of tier 7 with them, can we really avoid attention? He stuck out his chest at their disbelief. Moi has a brilliant plan. It's called the system. If it's here, there is infinite flexibility in almost everything. I have prepared quite a few items before coming here, and these items are going to be put to practical use. They are not strangers to the fantastical ST system. The variety of gadgets that exist within the system could make them confused if they are to really go through the all menagerie of stuff. And so, their eyes brightened up when they heard him mentioning the usage of items. Not dragging this out any longer, he drew out a cloak from the S.P.A.C.E ring and presented it in front of the two ladies. What is this? The two asked curiously while examining the cloak with their hands. Don't you two have system notification? Just take a closer look and you will see. Waving the cloak around while letting the two girls examine it instead of him giving a verbal explanation. The two glanced at him before opening the system's probing function in a cynical manner. Invisible battle cloak, TL, can hide away the things concealed within it, presence and chi included, item points 3000. So you're telling me this thing can really turn us invisible? Said the amused Mikato, she's a little bit interested to see how it works. It's so interesting. Chuckled Hinajiku, rendering him kinda speechless. Dam.N, Kaiko-sama, this kind of thing can only get you interested. Chapter 88. Inside a slightly dim stone tunnel, a chaotic battle is raging. It's an all-out A.S.Salt of armor-wearing individuals equipped with various melee weapons like sword, axe, and spears against a horde of monster. Some of the warrior used battle skills from time to time to cull the enemy, and those who used it is waiting for their battle chi to regen while at the same time using their weapons to cut the opponents. A bunch of individuals in light outfit, the magicians are supporting them from behind the lines. Compared to the frontliners, the magicians pretty much have the same coat of arms, a wand or staff here and there. Also, they aren't charging the front lines with arms raised, instead they were all busy chanting. After chanting, myriads of spell would be fired from them. Some shot fire A.L.S, ice spears, wind cutters to cut down the enemies with ranged attacks, and by extension supporting the warriors by lightening their load. The warriors didn't have flashy skills, the same could not be said of the magicians, however, as their skills come in many shapes and sizes. Just imagine, tons of magicians shooting spells. H.E.L.L. Yeah, F.U.C.K pigs, it's raining storm, lightning, thunder, fire. Basically spectacular as HELL. Rather than fighting, the whole place lit up like a banquet than a battlefield. What are they fighting against? Stone spiders. Big group of stone spiders who are about as tall as a grown man. These huge A.S. spiders aren't that coordinated in the sense that they aren't really divided into distinct roles. They are just leveraging on their huge body to crush the enemy they see. If they can't crush them, they would swing their legs around with an agility like you would not believe. These spiders would stop ramming and bashing to open their mouths and shoot stone spikers at unlucky warrior and magicians. The whole place didn't have any sense of order to it at all. Some spiders got cut to death, some get smashed by skills, and some spiders got blasted to kingdom come by fireball / ice spear / wind cutters. The warriors and magicians here aren't that heroic as well. Some of them got smashed into AB.L.O.O.D.Y pulp by the stone spiders, some of them got speared by their long limbs, and some unlucky F.U.C.K got staked by stone spikes. The magicians aren't spared from casualty as well. Anarchy Spider, level 50, TL. When Wu Yan and company saw the level, they are a bit stunned by it. That's pretty strong. Tier 6 stone spiders. If they are of the same number as the big, normal, Many me stone spiders, then would there still be results in this treasure hunting trip? Furthermore, judging from the level 50 spiders and the smaller variants that came before them, who's to say there won't be bigger stone spiders waiting for them? Tier 7? And then Tier 8? Or perhaps? The trio tensed up at the thought of the worst case scenario. If their fears are true, then this place might very well be the most dangerous place they have been to yet. Looks like the Tier 9 mortal injuries could be justified. He would have employed the pull-out strategy with the girls had he not stocked up on vital protection items. The treasures here aren't worth their lives. As long as one don't have learning disabilities, the choice between the two should be obvious. As long as he doesn't die, he could use summoning points to revive Mikoto and the gang. But, them being his world notwithstanding, as long as one has any integrity at all, then one would not leave girls for dead. Wrapped by the invisible battle cloak, Wu Yan and company hid behind the corpse of a dead anarchy spider in a low-key corner of the place. They are currently watching the ongoing battle as it progresses. The spiders might be many in number, but they are still outnumbered by the treasure hunting party. However, the stone spiders are still around 100 plus. Against this core of Tier 6 spiders, the Tier 6 warriors form the main resistance, with those lucky Tier 5 survivors serving as distraction to allow them to deliver a lethal strike. Meanwhile, the magicians kept laying on support fire waves after wave to diminish the number of spiders at hand. As a result, the stone spiders who outnumbered Tier 6 warriors had the tide of battle turned on them. The trend seems to be in favor of the treasure hunting group. All things constant, this should be their victory for sure. The main reason for this is because the spiders aren't that intelligent despite being Tier 6. Fighting against opponents that knows teamwork means the spider are bound to be played with. This play by the treasure hunting party infuriated the two girls. They clearly saw how a Tier 6 kicked a Tier 5 in front of a spider and then executing his battle skill to kill the spider when it is occupied with the target in front of it, and they saw clearly as well, the eyes of the deceased that did not find peace in death. TL, dying without closing your eyes apparently means that the guy either died a tragic death or has some unfinished business, in other words can't find peace. The two girls didn't care that they are hiding at all as they blurted it out loud. They would have been discovered, but the cloak had soundproofing properties as well. He's not as agitated as the two, but he's looking at the Tier 6 warrior with a cold glint in his eyes. Those guys, it's okay if they don't want to help, but they are just standing by letting it happen. Are they still human? TL, oh, I forgot, there's no mirror there, said Mikoto, looking at the Tier 7 standing behind and watching the show. She clenched her fist. This is what Yan is talking about when he said Silveria people had something in their nature? Might makes right? The weak getting preyed on? If that's how the world is, then he has a point. These people does not deserve sympathy. The cruel reality presented before her and what's going on disturbed her to the core. Hinajika felt very lucky for not having been born into this kind of world. Even the kind her would say something like this. Her extent of anger is obvious. He sighed before pulling the two girls into his arms. Startled, red shade floated up their face. They struggled to get out of his arms without a second thought. Wu Yan grabbed them, so of course he won't be letting go so easily. He blew by their ears, making them flinch and red to the tip of their ears as well as weak in their knees. Seeing the two girls' apparance, he smirked inwardsly. Sure, he's smiling and all, but it's as lewd as the smirk he has inside of him right now. Hinajiku, Mikoto, I think it's better if you girls don't look, he said with a straight face and a sigh. The two went silent after exchanging look and lowered their head. A brief while later, Hinajiku lifted her head and had eye contact with him before putting it as straight as possible. No, Yan, I want to look. He's surprised at her reaction, but Mikoto understood what's going on and merely smiled. And why's that? No particular reason. She lowered her head before continuing. We will be traveling to many more worlds after this. It's not just this world, there's Mikoto's world. Within these other worlds, there are bound to be these unfathomable beings. At that point you would interact and be in the company of these kinds of people. Rather than getting used to it at a later time, might as well start now. Don't look at me, I am with her on this. Heck, even my own world has these kind of individuals. I should be the one who needs to get used to it fast, Mikoto said when she saw him looking at her. He looked at them with a serious expression before sighing and pressing their head into his embrace. He continued while drowning himself in their fragrance. I'm sorry for making you girls go through this. Hinajiku and Mikoto closed their eyes and smiled while enjoying this bastion of solace. Chapter 89. The battlefield didn't change much despite the increasing mortality on both sides. It's as though the more people died, the more intense they fought. Everywhere on that place, there are raging fights, shrieks from monsters, battle roar from the fighters, and inevitably, the death throes and sound of bodies. Hitting the ground. On the side of the treasure hunting group, all the ones below Tier 5 are practically dead, and those few Tier 5 that pulled through with their relatively meager strength are starting to hit the bottom of their morale. Excluding the Tier 7 D.I.C.Ks standing there and watching them die, The Tier 6 themselves treat them like disposable P.A.W.Ns. Under these kind of hostile situation, who would fight for them if not because their lives are literally on the line here? The magicians on the other hand are doing much better. They are in the back on support role unlike the warriors that takes most of the risk. Some of the more unfortunate ones got hit by projectiles and died but they are all mostly still intact. However, the situation is not cheering Hinagiku and Mikoto up. Even for their comrades who fought for their sake, the magicians still kept their head high up like hot s.h.i.ts. Not giving the dead warriors the basic grat.i.2 they deserve. The way they're acting, it's like they will get tainted by the lowliness of those dead warriors if they even look at the bodies. According to Silveria's hierarchy, magicians are high up on the social ladder, way higher than the warriors. This is due to the fact that a magician needs first, the talent to practice magic, and then the background to support the magician's development. Basically, the magician is a job that can burn through the wallet. A warrior needs only 1 or 2 skills to fight. In actual battles, they would only need to add a little dochi here and there while swinging their weapons around to achieve devastating effect. A magician plays by a different playbook, their battle revolves around spells and to them a spell is equivalent to a skill. They can't go around swinging their canes like warriors can. Any self-respecting magician would need to be able to cast a certain amount of spells. Turns out, each of the aforementioned spells cost about the same as a battle skill. Well, if we assume the market efficiency theory works here then magic spells and battle skills are essentially of the same value so. Furthermore, to become a warrior, one only needs to achieve a certain standard of body condition as well as the ability to cultivate chi. Pretty much anyone can become a good warrior with enough training. So, even if warriors and magicians differ not much in terms of strength, these magicians would still treat the warriors like commoners. In other words, rich background plus good talents makes the magicians all C.O.C.Ky as HELL. They have a mindset fixed into their heads that goes something like this: magicians is master race, warriors lowly race. There is an exception to this generalization. Those warriors who can develop themselves to a certain level like say, Tier 7. It is only at this kind of level that the one could call themselves a legitimate super. At least one needs to be at this level for the magicians to reign in their haughty attitude so they would interact with them as they would themselves. Again, this is only a part of the crop, there are still some good magicians that wouldn't look down on anybody. But, Wu Yan is sure there's no such persons on this battlefield. Every magician here is so stuck up they probably need a lube to POOP. He never expected to find this lack of good guy magicians here. This might very well be the law of attraction at work here. He shook his head at the humans that are on trend to victory. When he glanced over the ones present, he raised his eyebrows. Akaros, could you please scan the surroundings? He invited the curious gaze of Hinagiku and Mikoto as well as AS.P.A.C. Akaros. He gestured to Akaros, incapable of defying her master, her eyes turned red. Akaros surveyed the surroundings and stopped suddenly. You have found somebody in the surrounding, haven't you? With a face that says I knew it, he grinned. He could guess the result of her scan. Akaros changed her eyes back to normal and lightly continued. Life signatures detected not far to the other side of this tunnel. He confirmed his suspicions with this and cursed at the F.U.C. Curse silently. What an insidious group, hiding intentionally. G.O.D. This would have been troubling if Akaro's scanning were a bit lacking. He didn't stop to think how he and the other girls fit the description of an insidious group. If the girls weren't too busy twitching their lips and eyebrows, itching to jump into the fray, they might have threw him a judging glare. Hinagiku and Mikoto are surprised at Akaro's confirmation. When they saw his smug grin, the two girls can't hold in their intrigue. How did you know they are people hiding here? You girls haven't noticed. He turned serious and spelled it out for them a word at a time. The auctioneer group is missing from action. Wadash. They instantly turned to look over the battlefield. After a brief while the two exchanged glance and turned back to him. So you're saying the lurking group is the auctioneer group? Seeing him nod, Mikoto asked again. How did you notice this? He didn't bother reminding them that he has impeccable memory so he could notice that the faces that should be here, aren't. He nonchalantly chuckled. The people from the auction firm, looks like they have some hidden agenda this time, it's lucky that we hid before coming here. The two girls frowned their lovely little foreheads and kept watching the progress of the battle. This time however, they raised their guards against the lurkers. Their instinct is telling them that the true motives of the flashy charades the auction firm put up are about to be revealed soon. All of this is going on behind the backs of the ones fighting on the battlefield. They are completely unaware of how they are made into white mouse by others. They also didn't know that there are two group of lurkers just waiting for them to take the meat out. The anarchy spiders are thinning out under their formation, there are already countless spiders dead on the ground, wasted and not coming back anytime soon. The remaining 30 to 40 spiders look like they might be dispersed any moment now. When the human side saw the conditions, the frontliners raised their spirit and quickened their hands. Heck, even the magicians are firing off more concentrated salvos. All in the hopes of ending this fight quicker. Just when the formation of the spiders seemed to be on the verge of being penetrated, the struggling spiders suddenly stopped all at once. They immediately started retreating. "Master, a new signature is encroaching," said Ikaros, who spared no expense in opening her scanning function after having failed to detect another possibly hostile group so close to them. She reported this at the same time the spiders started retreating, much to the surprise of the three. The ones fighting didn't notice anything strange. They thought the spiders are retreating because they're afraid. They frantically went after the spiders with weapons held high. The magicians weren't any different either. A tier 6 is currently running at the front of the pack, laughing out loud as he ran. When he caught up to a spider and is about to slay it to display his heroic, he didn't notice that a slim black spear shot out like lightning. It pierced him before he even noticed. And then, a black spider, at least twice as big as an anarchy spider, slowly crawled out from the darkness. Chapter 90. Blackstone Spider, Level 60. Blackstone Spider moved its slender legs and slowly made its appearance from within the darkness. It threw the poor F.U.C.K skewered on its leg aside with a flick of its leg and continued crawling out. This new development momentarily stunned the warriors and magicians. Against the Blackstone Spider twice as big as them, they stood still as the thing continued making its way towards them. The anarchy spies parted ways like they're in the presence of a monster. And coming out of the path, is another Blackstone Spider. 1, 2, 3, 4. And finally, 10. 10 Blackstone Spiders. This time even Wu Yan and company can't help flinching at the sight of these giants. They almost can't utter anything. Just moments ago, a tier 6 warrior of the same tier as Wu Yan got one shot at. They might be the same tier, but Wu Yan could have dispatched him easily as well, seeing as he had 2 rare armaments, as well as the fact that the tier 6 was negligent when he charged. Those notwithstanding, to die within such a short span of time, he would be lying if he said he wasn't startled. 10 tier 7 Blackstone Spiders. They stood like the walls of a fortress in opposition to the treasure hunters. They kept moving those legs of theirs like they can't wait to jump at them. Their eyes red with hostility, low growls could be heard from them. S.H.I.T. The black spiders are on another level than the spiders before. Standing at the back of the treasure hunters, the tier 7 cursed at the sight of the tier 7 Blackstone Spiders. They could clearly feel it. The aura and killing intent coming off of them, it's unlike the likes they have seen before this, definitely on another magnitude altogether. "I'm afraid those are tier 7s. An old and bald tier 7 calmly said after looking over the tier 7 Blackstone Spiders. Well, if their opponent are those tier 7 demonic beasts, then the little ones are going to be no match against them. The tier 7 individuals exchanged discussion, not giving the tier 7 spiders the time of day. Their logic being, since the demonic beasts don't have a high cognitive functions, and that they have the numbers advantage being 15 against 10, they could see that in a battle, the results should be clear. Finally, the bald old dude decisively said, "Exterminate them. Those little ones still have utility in them, don't let them die too soon." The other tier 7 nodded and raised their chi and mana before charging into the fray. The battle escalated in that very moment. Now that S.H.I.T is really rolling, the true danger of this place will appear soon enough. Wu Yan raised his vigilance to the highest. The appearance of the Blackstone Spider proved their hypothesis, that these demonic beasts are segregated into different tiers. Level 30 Mini-Me, Level 35 Stone Spiders, Level 40 Big Stone Spiders, Level 50 Anarchy Spiders, and now Level 60 Blackstone Spiders. Going by this trend, isn't it conceivable that there might be Level 70 Tier 8 and Level 80 Tier 9 waiting for them? If that's so, then that would be really scary. It's no wonder that a Tier 9 got done in at this place. When the two parties started fighting, the warriors and magicians are elated that the strongest among them finally started to join in. They could use this rise in morale after seeing a comrade fell in one strike. That despair, that pressure was intense. Now that the Tier 7 are coming out, why shouldn't they be happy? When the Tier 7 fought, they all retreated away. They understood that they have no place on this battlefield. If anyone joins the fray, then they might as well be sending vegetables, digging their graves. The fight between Tier 7s, what would that look like? Now if anyone's wondering, then Wu Yan could definitively tell them that it's no different than a tsunami or earthquake. At Tier 7, the baseline of what would call a strong 1/super. Before that, not even level 59 could call themselves super. Why? Well, that's because the gap between tiers are so significant, and it increases the higher you go up in tiers. At Tier 7 the gap could be described as a frightening disparity. Silveria people would often lump Tier 1, 2 and 3 as low rank, 4, 5 and 6 as middle rank, and 7, 8 and 9 as high rank. So basically, the difference between a middle rank and a high rank. A fight between high rankers, It's enough to shake a small locality down to its foundation, just like this battle. The hard surfaces have cracks like those seen on turtles running through them, and rubbles flew like dust in the air. That amount of force could send a grown 100 kilograms man flying out like sandbags. Each attack could blow holes in the ground and make the earth tremble. Wu Yan and company have seen this before, so their reaction aren't that big. The last time they saw this kind of scene was the fight between the great snake Yokai and Mikoto. It's scary in many ways, the cave almost collapsed on them. And then there was Ikaros blowing apart the stone room, that was shocking as well. They are already a bit used to seeing this kind of thing, including the scale of this battle. The same could not be said of the treasure hunters, they are all staring slack-jawed at the fight. Their eyes filled with Zion and admiration, they wished they were the ones fighting as Tier 7 on that battlefield. Not surprisingly, the black stone spiders are simplistic as well. The 15 Tier 7 took the same basic formation as the fighters before, warriors as vanguard in front, magicians as rear support in the back. The black stone spiders has no other alternatives, they screeched in anger and brawled with the warriors in front of them. Despite their big physique, being the same tier meant that even if they could suppress the warriors for now, the spiders can't do anything significant against them in the short term. The magic artillery hitting the spiders from time to time would mitigate their advance or any sort of advantage the spiders have gained. As the fight moved along, the 15 Tier 7 started taking out their armaments. Under the augmentation from their arms, their abilities increased as evidenced by the agonized screech of the spiders. Wu Yan felt a bit speechless as he observed that the Tier 7s don't seem to possess any rare armaments at all, they are raising H.E.L.L with mainstream armaments. The only saving grace to them is that they have more than one mainstream armaments, as they would change equip now and then according to circuit.misstances. It's understandable though, rare armaments are stuff that only Tier 7 has business carrying around, but that's it. These old fogies look like they have no more potential for improvements in them, not having any rare armaments is understandable considering their circuit.misstance. They aren't Fei, a Tier 7 of 20 years old. Her talents are extraordinary, her path ahead is bright. Not to mention she's also a hotshot at the Ilu Empire grandest N.O.Bli family's heiresside. Now that is someone who definitely would be swining around a rare armament. Wu Yan is forgetting that he's an exception to the rule as well. The tide of the battle changed again. The spiders are getting more furious. And as they became more furious, their attacks became more vicious. A slightly weaker Tier 7 can't deal with the increasing pressure anymore, so he chose to use a battle skill, and this started a chain reaction of battle skills. Needless to say, the blackstone spiders are beaten back. Chapter 91. When the warriors started using battle skills, the magicians at the back had no reason to hold back anymore. They threw aside the small spells and brought out the big guns while bringing out more mana. Their chants got longer, fast and steady they chanted, it seems they are going to use highly destructive spells. Without a doubt, the Tier 7 warriors can dish out the punishment. But the blackstone spiders aren't chicken s.h.i.t either. They might not have battle skills, but in exchange, the spiders have rock-hard bodies. They might be howling in pain, but they aren't really that hurt, judging by their body surface. The blackstone spiders went berserk when harm is inflicted upon them. They can't approach the annoying magicians shooting spells from the back, and they can't push back the Tier 7 engaging them. Thus, the spiders all opened their mouths and shot stone spikers. The spikes this time also had an upgrade compared to the tinier spiders before. The spikes are bigger, and darker. Its strength is probably no weaker than the power of those magicians' blasts. The Tier 7 magicians have the necessary countermeasure, unlike the puny magicians before, what with getting skewered by spikes. The shots may be sudden, but with a lift of their canes, magic shield appeared to block the spikes. Are the spikes really that easy to stop though? Of course not. The Tier 7 magicians are unharmed for now. Their shields that could withstand same tier attacks a few times are now barely holding up. Well, this is what is to be expected of the only long-range attacks these spiders could muster. When a few warriors see that the spiders are going to keep shooting, they banded up and struck at the nearest spider from multiple directions with weapons covered in layers of chi. The spiders are not that intelligent, but they still know how to dodge. Against their attacks, they could only close their mouth and furiously grapple with the fighters once more. A Tier 7 magician finally finished chanting, and with a fwish of the cane the temperature of the air soared. A gigantic wave of fire formed and swept towards the black spiders. A few Tier 7 warriors backed away with good timing, taking position in front of a few magicians. The spiders wanted to chase them down, but waves of fire forced them back. They shot spikes, trying to disperse the magic. When the spiders actually dispersed the wave and are about to launch an offensive, another Tier 7 magician finished his casting and released his big A.S.S magic. The ground started trembling, and the spiders, as if threatened by this, started screeching out loud. To no avail, however, a spike came out of the ground and slashed off one unlucky spider's leg. Soon after, countless spikes came out rapidly and started going for the blackstone spiders. Ignoring their agonizing screech, the spikes made their way inside their body. Incredibly, green blood flowed out from within them when none flowed out with the smaller counterparts before. Wherever there are spiders, there are spikes as well. They got pincushion and as a result, went bat s.h.i.t crazy. But before they could fight back, the other tier 7 Fincy their chanting and gigantic bolts of lightning appeared out of nowhere and struck the spiders. After a few loud bang, the black spiders are given great casualty under the combined efforts of the 15 tier 7. Under attack from the lightning bolts and sharp spikes, green blood splattered everywhere. Some of them lost their legs, some got fried, some are screeching in pure pain like they're trying to leave behind their last shout on this world. It's a given the tier 7 would know what's going on at this point. Isn't it high time to beat the dog that fell into the water? TL, give them Fugalis a good hiding. They took up arms and smashed their battle skills at the black spiders. After waves of attack, the 10 spiders made their appearance for the first and last time. Their giant bodies fell one by one. Oh! The treasure hunting group cheered when they saw their powerhouses taking down the giant monsters. They raised their weapons, they beat their weapons on the ground in clear elation. At this very moment, their morale has reached the peak. Wu Yan and company watched the whole thing go down. They exchanged glances and nodded. Wu Yan broke the quiet atmosphere around them first. The tier 7s are pretty good to able to hold their own against 10 spiders of the same tier, without much casualty at that. Given that they had the numerical, equipment and coordination advantage, but still, without a doubt if the tier 7s are our enemies, they would probably be tricky to deal with. He can't stay quiet about this because it's clear from the battle just now that these guys are ruthless. They wouldn't even help their dying subordinates. Surely when Wu Yan and company finds the treasure, they would not hesitate to outright try and kill them. He does have the necessary items in place to guarantee their escape, but truth be said, he really doesn't want to resort to these methods because it would mean that they are in very dire straits. Hinajuku and Mikoto nodded in agreement. Mikoto reckons that she's stronger than any one of the tier 7s present, but against the whole group and without the items A.S.Sist ants, she would probably end up the same as those spiders. Dead. When they heard Ikaru's, the three turned towards her. Given Ikaru's personality, she's a bit uncomfortable with all eyes on her. Ikaru's, did something new turn up? Normally, she would just stay quiet like a loyal guard if nothing important happens. Yes. She continued in a light tone. A very strong life signature is approaching. Very strong life signature. Since she said it, then she's definitely not talking about the auction firm that's hiding as well, which means to say. Her deep red eyes shone as she said. 3 signatures, 2 rank A's and 1 rank S. Wu Yan, Mikoto, and Hinajuku are surprised. A means the same tier as Ikaru's, or those that Ikaru's feels can cause harm to herself, that's A. S means those that can bring serious threat to herself. This kind of existence is approaching. How can they not be shocked at this revelation? Of course the ones on the battlefield wouldn't know what's going on. And so, the ones cheering happily are currently unaware that their last moment is going to arrive very soon. The poised tier 7 standing there basking in praise suddenly felt the presence of death enveloping them and their surrounding. Startled, their face changed very quickly. Run. One of the tier 7 sucked bed to the trauma of death and backpedaled while hysterically shouting. The shout didn't only surprise the ones present, the other tier 7s also looked at each other, conflicted. They are conflicted for a very simple reason. Run and abandon the bounty or brave the risk and find that this is but another trick engineered into the structure of this place to mess with people. In that few moments, they lost all chances of salvaging their lives. Chapter 92. The treasure hunters all looked at the tier 7s losing their S.H.I.T and felt perplexed. You look at me, I look at you, they didn't know what to do at this point and started making a fuss. The tier 7s are all very agitated now, they have to listen to the treasure hunters making a bunch of noise and their hearts are all stirred as well. But at the same time, they also can't make heads or tails of their emotions, unsure of how to deal with it. That impending death aura hasn't stopped yet, it feels like it's coming ever so closer. Their hearts jumped, their intuitions are telling them something very terrifying is encroaching upon them. The tier 7s that were conflicting over whether to stay on path or escape soon dismissed the thought of thinking about any other things. The rowdy treasure hunters all gradually piped down, they are still cultivators that are better than average, not at the tier 7s level but still they quieted down and stopped all actions. The weird atmosphere enveloped them. Master, the strong signatures is very close now. Besides Wu Yan and company, Body can hear Ikaru's. Just as the three of them are anxious, they heard it. That noise, like something dragging its feet across the ground. Along with the sounds, Wu Yan, Mikoto, and Hinajuku started tensing up. Some of the hunters on the ground are starting to be afraid of this obscure atmosphere, insidious aura, and mysterious sound. The sound got closer and closer, the more timid individuals of the group started trembling. Hearts racing, the Tier 7 brought out their weapons and raised their awareness to the highest level. Among the hunters, a warrior accidentally looked in front, and when he saw it, the warriors widened his eyes in dismay and stepped back in terror. Over there. His hand trembling like never before pointed in a certain direction, with a terrified voice he uttered. In that place without a sound, his voice stood out very clearly. His tone made the whole weird atmosphere they had going on raised through the roof. They looked in the said direction, and this one glimpse finally turned into the last straw that broke their hearts. Two giant vicious-looking spiders slowly appeared. They are 10 meters tall, and when compared with the black stone spiders they were fighting with, the black stone spiders might as well be little kids. If it's just two gigantic stone spiders they wouldn't be so afraid, but this two gigantic spiders aren't stone spiders but spiders in the truest sense of the word. With metal spikes as body hair all over them, as well as their long legs. Giant head, mean-looking face, weird eyes, and those stone pillars for fangs made them look very intimidating. HSSSS. TL, I don't know, do spiders even hiss? When the spiders are in full view, they raised their big front body up and revealed their big OL fangs before hissing and releasing a gigantic sound wave of a roar. It turned into a giant gust and blew towards the treasure hunting group. Giant spider escort, level 70. The treasure hunters might not have systems identification like Wu Yan and company do, but they knew, judging from the fear-inducing aura and that body of theirs, that the spiders are absolutely out of their league. Death has already set its sight on them. Terror, shock, dread. No other words could sum up their feelings, them including the Tier 7s, who moments ago, are still looking pretty bada.s.s. Yes, the Tier 7s peed their pants. Boasting a strength stronger than all of them, that power, that feeling of not being able to do anything has already spread out within them. Each of the Tier 7s are convinced that they can hold their own at least a while, even against peak Tier 7 supers armed with rare armament. When they saw the two monsters, however, that insurmountable feeling of dread, there's only one possible explanation. Tier 8. Run. No one else knows just how scary the Tier 8 are except them, even if only a tier in difference. Thus, they knew going up against the Tier 8 spiders with 15 people will only be dragging their inevitable deaths longer. They turned tails and flew away in the fastest speed they could muster. It's still futile though. When they turned, a bunch of stone spikes shot towards them at a speed no one on the battlefield could react to. With this one turn, they revealed their back to the reapers. The stone spikes pierced their skin and their organs, effectively sending them to death's door. In such a short frame of time, all the Tier 7s died. Woe be them, had they tried resisting maybe they could have lasted long enough to find a sliver of hope. Alas, they chose the most foolish of all choices. The hunters all yelped. No one had the intention to resist, even the strongest of them all. The Tier 7s got wiped out in an instant. How can they even put up a fight against something like that? Like the dead Tier 7s, they chose the most foolish path. Everyone turned around and ran like their lives depended on it. Because it does. The two giant spider escorts played shoot the moving target, the stone spikes rained down on them, the slower ones of the treasure hunters all got shot down. Screams filled the S.P.A.ce, screams of fear and death intertwined and echoed throughout the place. Hinajiku and Mikoto shut their eyes at the same time the slaughter started happening. With their personalities that can barely be described as resilient, they felt sympathy and they couldn't bear to continue watching anymore. They buried their heads into Wu Yan's chest. Wu Yan on the other hand bitterly laughed. It's a bit ironic how the Tier 7s that treated the weaker treasure hunters like disposable P.A.W.ns are now dead alongside said disposable P.A.W.ns. Only Wu Yan knows that this is only the start. The two giant spider escorts along aren't that big a threat in his opinion, not with the Karos at his side that is. What he is really concerned with though, is the life signature with the rating of S. Under the barrage of stone spikes, the body count kept rising, their bodies riddled with spikes. The two spiders showed no signs of being satisfied as they kept shooting at the most concentrated area. After a round of spraying spikes, close to 90% of the treasure hunters died, they shed their last blood upon the ground. Maybe it's because they really is a lot of people, but a small part of them managed to slip through because the spiders couldn't service them in time. The fastest runner among them all got out of range and is currently fleeing while scattering. When they hear that the sound of spikes stopped, this small group can't help feeling delighted, they might just survive this shit. They hastened their legs towards the direction away from the spiders. When the spider escorts are about to give chase, Wu Yan saw it. Their bodies flinched and then stopped. Chapter 93. Wu Yan is not sure whether he heard wrong, but even though Akaros sounded soft and mellow he could feel a hint of graveness within her voice. Akaros, could it be? His heart sunk when he saw those beautiful pair of eyes. Yes, Master, the strong life signature will be arriving T-10 seconds, as it is very dangerous it is recommended that Master retreats. Akaros lifted her head and looked at him as she waited for him make the decision. Hinagiku and Mikoto looked at him as well. Since Akaros described it as very dangerous and also recommended him to retreat, then that would mean not even Akaros thinks she can win. All eyes on him, he thought for a while before bitterly laughing. A life form that Akaros can't handle, regardless of how strong it actually is, this would imply that the treasure guarded by it must be commensurate with the strength of the guardian. He's ento sure whether it's worth giving up this treasure, but if he were alone he might have used the invisible cloak to risk it. He has the system after all, and he has AF.U.C.K ton of PTS to back him up. If it's just escaping, he still has the confidence to do so. However, can a treasure be compared with the love, of his life? Short answer, H.E.L.L. no. He is intently made the decision. Hinagiku, Mikoto, Akaros, if I tell you girls to go, use that at once, we will run away from here. Hinagiku, you're in charge of the pipsqueak. Hinagiku and Mikoto nodded sternly while Akaros replied with a yes, master. She then remained silent and continued watching the surroundings with her gorgeous pair of red eyes. He narrowed his eyes and focused on the field with concentrations raised to 120%. Even if they are going to retreat, he must personally see what kind of life form it is that Akaros deemed so dangerous and then go back and devise some scheme aimed at its weak point. With that escape item from the system, he has absolute confidence that he can pull this off with margin to spare. Master, the target has appeared. When she said that, the two escort spiders parted ways to either side. A super big spider, bigger than the two escort spiders combined, appeared. This scene went down unbeknownst to the fleeing treasure hunters. They also didn't know their time has run out. Besides being bigger, there's not much difference in appearance between the escorts and the queen. It arrived at the battlefield under the escort of the two spiders, flashing within its eyes are the light of wisdom. Giant Spider Queen, level 83. Wu Yan, Hinagiku, and Mikoto had their pupils shrunk, their face dyed with bitterness. Just as they predicted, this place had a tier 9 guarding it. Even if they have the escape plan all set out, under the current circumstance they are feeling upset. That's an existence that one looks up to. It's like the case with Akaros, although she only has eyes for Wu Yan and no one else. He's not sure whether or not Akaros could defeat the Spider Queen with her gold armaments, but even factoring in the gold armaments he doesn't think that she could surpass the tier gap. Tier 9 is the most powerful existences after Demi-G.O.ds. It could be surmised from the fact that the 15 tier 7s got wrecked by tier 8 in mere seconds that the gap between tiers are significantly large. He's not going to make her take the risk, or even if he could revive her as long as he survived. But that light within the Spider Queen's eyes made him raise his eyebrows, which he subsequently relaxed. It is still a tier 9 demonic beast. It's conceivable that it might have a wisdom comparable to that of a human. It's said that Demi-G.O.D tier demonic beast could morph into human form. The same logic should also apply to this thing that one couldn't determine to be a demonic beast or not. The Spider Queen grinned at its lips, its long twin fangs followed in motion as well. Drops of liquid fell on the ground. When they did, with a pshh, the hard surface had holes corroded into them, making their pupils shrink again. It eyed the escaping treasure hunters with disdain in its eyes. He has seen this before in a non-human, namely in the snake yokai before. Of course, yokai and demonic beast cannot be compared on the same scale. They might be non-human, but they are different life forms. In terms of evolution, yokais are higher in wisdom. Its long legs parted to two sides and it crouched down its gigantic body. Opening its mouth slightly like it's yawning, just this act alone the escaping treasure hunters can't run anymore. The stone ground shook and the escaping hunters, including Wu Yan and company, lost their balance. The people who were escaping with much glee sudden felt that as they ran, a part of their body suddenly felt cold, making them stop. Looking down they saw the stone ground revealing its foundation and soil. The disappeared stone warped into stone spikes and pierced them from the ground. After an intense agony, they merely closed their eyes without so much as a chance to cry out in pain. Their heart and breathing stopped, and blood hung down from the lifeless corpse hanging on the stone spikes. Personally ending them, the Spider Queen tilted its head, glanced at them and then looked away like it only killed 2 bugs. Relative to it, they might as well be bugs. Perhaps even in human counterparts, they are but mere insects. Weak humans are treated as bugs, ants. In this world where the strong rules, this is a common occurrence. And so, with the death of this small group of people, the treasure hunters that came this time, the people that once stood upon the plaza, are all wiped out. The place fell into silence. Looking at the ground, the three felt an ineffable coldness rising up within them, their face twisted in discomfort. Sighing, he waved at Hinagiku and Mikoto. Depressed and drained of will, he said to them. All right, we will be leaving here, the Spider Queen is too dangerous. Hinagiku and Mikoto exchanged glances and bitterly laughed. Mikoto, strong as she is, an existence that can rank in the top 7 of Academy City, must admit that if she fights with the Spider Queen, she's not coming back. Heck, She doesn't think she can reasonably take on any one of the two escort spiders. They might be one level higher, but this difference is like that of heaven and earth. He saw through her thoughts just going by her expression, so he rubbed her head in a caring manner. Blushing, she felt warm inside when she saw his caring eyes. The frustration she feels also lightened up. Smiling, he looked at the Spider Queen once more. But what he sees made his heart thump. That's because the crouching spider is currently looking at their direction. C.R.A.P. Yelped him. Chapter 94. The Spider Queen made Wu Yan's hair stood on end, his heart went cold and a drop of sweat slowly dripped down from his forehead. Busted, 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 busted. Run, 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 run. These thoughts instantly filled up his mind. He grabbed Hinajuku and Mikoto by their hands and held onto them, preparing to escape at any given moment with the escape tool. Hinajuku and Mikoto noticed his anxiety as well. They were worried as well when they saw the cold sweats on his face. When he shouted C.R.A.P., their anxiousness grew bigger as well. Master. As if noticing her master's mental state, Akaros worriedly looked at his distraught face and was just about to approach him before she got cut off. We are retreating. Before the girls could ask anything, he instantly chose their next move. They didn't notice the Spider Queen's line of sight, but that's natural because the time period between the Spider Queen looking in their direction and him calling a retreat is only a few seconds interval. When they heard him they said no more. If he said so, then there's a good reason for it. Everyone took out a certain item. Little Ol Lyran, blindfolded as she is, took out an item as well. A scroll made from crystal. When they were about to use it, a strong whistling sound rang in this place devoid of sound because of the death of the treasure hunters. 3 ties drew tails of light as they flew out nearby. Their speed rivaled that of an airplane in flight, the wind they stirred up blew incessantly as they flew by. When the sound reached them, the 3 ray of lights have already arrived at the side of the Spider Queen and its 2 escorts. Because of how sudden it is, not even the Spider Queen could react before the wind blew. When the Queen did recovered, it raised its of torso. But the short amount of time delay has allowed the 3 rays of light to come close to its body. Wu Yan and company looked in the direction of the sound and saw that the 3 rays of light has already formed a triangular formation, encircling the Spider Queen and the escorts in the middle. At this point, he could see clear that the 3 ties are 3 persons. 3 strong persons at that. Mamurai, level 72. Jared, level 73. Colus, level 75. Master, the 3 life forms on board the airship. Akaro's sentence is a bit broken up, but he could understand the gist of it. Basically, these 3 are the ones she detected on board the airship. Why are they appearing now? At such a timing, do they want to die that badly? He signaled to Mikoto and the gang to wait for further instructions while raising his eyebrow at the 3 tier 8s. They didn't store away the crystal scrolls yet, they would still use at the slightest hint of anything critical. The 3 tier 8s are boggling him. Even if they are tier 8, they should still be aware that the Spider Queen they are facing right now is tier 9. They didn't run but chose to go up against something like that. Are they really trying to dig their own graves here? They should also have seen what the Spider Queen and the escorts did to the treasure hunters. Its power is undeniable. Maybe they're blinded by greed and decided to take a wild gamble. He dismissed the thoughts quickly. They are tier 8s, not some random schmuck. Now that they're here, there must be a reason for it. He also self-derisively laughed. It almost slipped him that besides him, there are still another group of people hiding as well. The auction firm's personnels and the tier 8 that just tagged along. It didn't matter what he thought, the battlefield changed tremendously with the appearance of the 3 tier 8s. Encircling the Spider Queen and the escorts, they out a vial filled with blood-red liquid from their chests. Quick! Colus yelled and opened the vial in his hand. Jared and Mamurai did the same thing. Opening the vial, they splashed the liquid on the ground. As the liquid fell, the 3 took out another object. It looked like a paper. They pressed down the paper on top of the liquid on the ground. After that, the 3 stopped as if they are finished with some kind of procedure. A grin slowly floated up to their face. The Spider Queen looked down at the 3 with icy stares. Although the steps seem numerous, but they are performed well within the period when the Spider Queen raised its body and when it recovered senses and took a stance. Wu Yan and company can also attest to their speed. What seemed like only a blink of an eye is enough time for the 3 to finish up their ritual. Those actions are not only quick, they are trained as well. The Spider Queen felt uneasy when it saw the red light shining from under the paper. The red light grew more and more intense until its glow turned into that of fresh blood. It is at this point that the Spider Queen reached the maximum threshold of anxiety. It instinctively moved to stop whatever the H.E.L.L is going to happen next. It roared and the escorts darted out as if receiving her commands. The escorts dashed at Jared and Mamurai while the Queen opened its mouth like it's preparing something. Too bad though, before the escorts and the Queen could do anything, the 3 A.S. sail ants jumped away to a safe distance. Around the Spider Queen, The three paper burst into flames, and as it turned to ashes the liquid transformed into three blood-red beams of light. The beams of light wavered a bit before dashing around, leaving trails of red line in their paths. The beams of light flying around P.I.S. said the Spider Queen to no ends. Its frosty gaze got even colder, and tremendous killing intent fell on the Colas and Co. They backpedaled and lowered their waist. That being so, one could see that they are indeed intimidated, but no trace of terror could be found. In fact, it looked like they are certain of their victory, as if they are going to wreck the Spider Queen, much to the puzzlement of Wu Yan and company. The red beams of light continued, and the red lines became more and more concentrated. The Spider Queen roared explosively, and failing to quell the unease within, jumped at Colas and Co. The red lines on the ground flashed, and the Spider Queen is bounced back like there is some kind of invisible wall stopping her. Losing its S.H.I.T, it rammed against the wall to no avail. Colas and Co. relaxed a bit when they saw this. It looks like they aren't sure this method would definitely work against the Spider Queen as well. The Spider Queen used more and more strength to ram the wall, as evidenced by the sound coming from within, but each and every time Ti did, the lines would flash and it would be bounced back. It seems like the Spider Queen is completely contained within. Wu Yan still has his guard up. He can see that the Spider Queen not only used more strength, even the distance it got bounced back decreased with each iteration. At a certain point it practically didn't get knocked back at all. Colas and Co. also noticed this, their face tensed up. When the lines glowing on the ground visibly weakened, they tensed up their body as well. Soon after, however, they noticed something and quickly relaxed their body with an overjoyed expression on their face. Chapter 95. Within the red line formation, the Spider Queen and its escort kept launching themselves at the barrier and subsequently getting repelled. Against that kind of assault, the formation set forth by Colas and Co. didn't seem to be weakening. Unsure as to whether or not the spiders could break free, Colas and Co. kept their vigilance up. At a certain point, their expression changed to that of elation. Taking note of this, Wu Yan knew that the flow of events will change. Suddenly, red lights overflowed, dyeing the entire place in the shade of blood. Its repulsive properties had a boost in strength as well, seeing as the spiders got sent back to the center of the formation. Wu Yan and company shielded their eyes from the intense red light with their arms raised. At the peak of prominence, the red lines on the ground flowed in a fluid motion as if something is infusing it with life. It wriggled and encircled the Spider Queen. When Wu Yan and company opened their eyes, they saw that the red lines had formed into an enormous blood-red magic formation. It contained the spiders within its center, much like a cage, imprisoning the Spider Queen and its escorts. The Spider Queen completely snapped inside. Having dwelled for countless time, in this place without any form of life but it and the depolarized minime versions it laid out of boredom. Inside here, it is the sovereign. A bit before this, a strong individual came sneaking into this place. Not only can he fight on par with it, his strength in battle ties with it. If not for the stone spider kingdom it made over countless years, it might have cost dearly to deal with the intruder. Even so, the intruder managed to survive the onslaught with heavy injuries as well as take down half of its stone spider kingdom before making an escape. Some that said event is only an outlier event among the countless years that has gone, and for the days to come, it would still be the ruler of this place. Who would have thought that after the intruder left, tons of humans would continuously invade this place? Alas, the humans are too weak, just a simple flick of its claws and they are squished to death. They are no more than simple spice to add flavor to its life. From the start, the Spider Queen thought that this time would end in the same manner. But turns out, the number of humans this time is numerous like none before. Slaying all its kins except the two earliest it gave birth to, and then to imprison them in this strange territory. If the foe this time were as strong as the foe last time, then it might concede its outcome to bad luck, but this time the opponents that made it danced upon their palms are but a mere 3 weak ants. How then can the Spider Queen express its wrath? Hiss. The spider mustered its strength and roared in anger. The two escorts on the side were shocked by thus one roar and fell to the ground while trembling. The roar echoed throughout the place, making it shake this violently for the first time ever. Bringing the two girls into his arms, he hugged them tightly with a shocked state of mind. Despite not knowing what that blood-colored magic formation is as well as its function and extent of abilities, but seeing as it can contain the Spider Queen, clearly the blood-red magic formation isn't just some scr.a.ppy stuff. Under these circustances, the Spider Queen doesn't seem to be weakened at all. It could still exhibit that amount of power, a power that can rival a small locality magnitude 10 earthquake. With just one roar it could shake this place to its core. How much power would this require in the first place? This is the power of a tier 9. Such power, if he had used the points before to summon a tier 9 character, wouldn't he have been able to do whatever the H.E.L.L.H.D.A.M.N well pleases upon this vast land? This thought is dismissed without further deliberation the instant he looked at Ikaro's beautiful countenance. Given the chance for a do-over, he would still summon Ikaros. Colas and Co got sent back quite a few steps before they could steady themselves. In their eyes, the fear towards the Spider Queen grew intense. This monster, isn't it too strong? Jared gulped. Ever since coming up to Tier 7, he has never been this ruffled. He had thought that there's nothing that could make him lose composure in this world. This belief fortified when he grew into a Tier 8. Now he understands very well that compared to the Spider Queen, his previous pride might as well be a thin paper that could not withstand a strike. This is the greatness of a Tier 9. Culus mused and mumbled. Mamurai bitterly laughed as he took in the wreck surroundings. He recalled the ridiculous roar with fervent Zion. I must break through to Tier 9. Their voice, though not too loud, could be heard clearly by Wu Yan and Ko. He narrowed his eyes. This 3, they are awestruck by the Spider Queen, but they are not terrified at all. At the very most they are just a bit fearful. What is it, that they have so much confidence in? He didn't need to ponder, for soon, the answer revealed itself. Muttered Ikaros. Wu Yan, Hinajiku, and Mikoto flinched before turning with a weird look. Ikaros. Said Wu Yan while twitching his lips. Don't tell me it's another strong life form is approaching. Ikaros didn't understand the nuance behind his words, but she continued. No, master, the Magsi formation is AMA.S.Sing an enormous amount of energy. Gathering energy. Looking in said direction, they paled at the sight of it. Within the formation, the Spider Queen looked like it got disabled, struggling against something while squirming around to no avail. The escorts are under the same kind of status as well. The formation is flashing with blood-red sheen and increasing in intensity. The reason it could do so is the blood streaming endlessly into the magic formation. They saw it, the blood the deceased shed. This is. Hinajiku and Mikoto are rendered speechless at the scene of blood flowing and gathering. Their minds went blank and this disturbed them very deeply. Wu Yan clenched down his teeth. If he still don't what is going on at this point, then he is a dumba.s. No wonder they would generously show the treasure map. It's also not a fortuitous event that they spread around the news in that supply town. Everything is but a setup for this. Everything they did is to establish this magic formation to deal with the Spider Queen. Spreading the news, gathering up the supers blinded by the prospect of getting treasure, all just so they can get the requisite amount of persons. Hiding away instantly after entering this place, wait for the suckers to die and then activate this magic formation to gather up the blood of the dead to supply it to the magic formation. Perhaps even before this the auction firm has sent in guinea pigs to survey the area, and therefore knowing about the presence of a Tier 9 Spider Queen and then devising a plan to counter it. They knew that they can't do anything against the giant spider by themselves. They also knew that the treasure hunters this time are nothing more than sacrifices for the Spider Queen. Wait for the spider to kill everyone and then come out to take advantage of their deaths to gather up blood chi and then activating the vicious magic formation to deal with the Spider Queen. Like this, the treasure will belong to them. Chapter 96. They decided to keep the treasures and even treated the treasure hunters as their stepping stones. What a bunch of sinister individuals. In all likelihood, they are going to claim the whole thing was a scam after they get their hands on the treasures. Probably going to spout some bulls.h.i.t like it's only the nest of a Tier 9 demonic beats and then deny the s.h.i.t out of any other allegations. Everybody is dead except for them. They can say whatever the h.e.l.l they want without being afraid of getting called out for it. Who's going to testify against them? They just need to exit this place, destroy the transfer stone and then claim it is an act out of desperation to escape the pursuit of the Tier 9 demonic beast. No loose end and everybody gets to laugh their a.s.s off at home counting their haul. One must say, the auction's ruse is pretty damn ruthless. Savage. When Wu Yan told Hinajiku and Mikoto about this, the two girls covered their mouths and disbelief could be seen in their eyes. Maybe they think this kind of plan is just too unforgivable and so they can't accept it. When he saw Culus and Co being all happy and C.O.C.K sure of their victory, he coldly laughed inside. It's a pretty good plan, but too bad you guys didn't think someone would survive that big wave of spider under the leadership of the Spider Queen, did you? You guys also didn't consider the possibility of outliers like us, huh? What can one say but that this is heaven's will? That's not fair. How can they possibly be expected to consider the scenario that someone like Wu Yan and his magic cape could perfectly conceal themselves at the side and watch the whole show with them? How would they know that while they are gleefully waiting to take all the prizes someone would be doing the same thing in close vicinity? If this is not the will of heavens, then the auction firm Praying Mantis would not have been able to detain Wu Yan and company, that is like the sparrow, when they were about to flee after being spotted by the giant spider. Is this not heaven's will? That's why it has to be heaven's will. Yan, what are we going to do? Ignoring the issue of what he is thinking about, Mikoto for one could not stand it. With lightning flashing about, she looked at the field with anger-filled eyes. Looking at her condition, it's clear that she's utterly p.i.s. set off at the auction firm's action. As a kind girl and having a disciplinary committee Kauerhei as a Kauerhei, with a heart filled with justice, how can she not get mad at what is happening before her? Although her mental fortitude has increased since being summoned by Wu Yan, but there are still principles that would absolutely not change. She might be a bit naive before, but she doesn't have that naivete anymore. Her kindness on the other hand still remains, as do the everyday life that she kept inside her. It's one of the few points Wu Yan is glad about her. Kaiko-sama is more or less the same, if not for the lack of strength to do so. How she wished she could rush up those three slime of .A.L.L.S and beat the C.R.A.P out of them. Do I even need to say it? Rubbing the back of his palm, the corner of his lip lifted into a sneer. Since they took the trouble to make a good show, if we don't inherit their zest, wouldn't it be a shame for them? You're saying? Hinajuku and Mikoto could guess his intentions. The guy is thinking. Let them taste what they did to others. TL, use their way/means to give them a taste by returning it unto their body/themselves, in other words a taste of their own medicine. Ignoring whether or not they knew the meaning of this Chinese saying, he laughed and continued. Let them bite at each other like dogs. They already did us a favor by dealing with the Spider Queen, and we got a good taste of what it's like to be the fisherman. TL, a reference to this. The two girls are rendered speechless at the sight of Wu Yan sneering. They recall just a few moments ago, a Wu Yan who's saying let's run in a panicky way. They are so close to actually giving a facial readjustment to that nasty grinning countenance of his. But, if they settled the Spider Queen, how are we going to deal with the 3 Tier 8? Said a frowning Mikoto. Suppose the Tier 9 got done in, the 3 Tier 8 would be the next biggest foes they have to go up against. Their lineup, 1 Tier 5, 1 Tier 6, 1 Tier 7, 1 Tier 8. TL, plus a mascot, her parents can wait. We need Lyran here. Against 3 Tier 8s, it's not a very favorable matchup, is it? Relax. Wu Yan understand her qualms. He's not that dumb, he doesn't reckon he could pull it off himself for sure. If it was the Spider Queen, we might have needed to bring out some trump cards from the system, and even then there are limited means, but... Glancing over at Colas & Co., he lightheartedly pointed out. If it's just the 3 Tier 8s, with the Akaros on our side, we are not out of the game yet. Hinajuku and Mikoto looked at the expressionless Akaros astonished. But... Hinajuku hesitatingly continued. She might be higher in level than any one of the 3 in Colas & Co., she's just one person, going up against 3 persons, that would be. That's because you girls don't understand Akaros. When he said this, his tone is full of confidence as he rubbed Akaro's head while chuckling. Akaros is the king of group fights. TL, is there perhaps a better translation for instead of a literal translation? King of group fights. It's clear that the two girls didn't understand what he meant by that. More like, when they are looking at Akaros and the hand rubbing her head, a hint of displeasure and jelly could be seen. Let's take an ill.u.s.tritive case, Mikoto. Mikoto flinched when he looked in her directions. If you are of the same tier as Akaros, disregarding equipments and other such factors and just basing it on pure ability, then you might be able to win by virtue of your special abilities. But if you team up with another person, then your victory might not be so sure. At this point, he could see the inevitable puzzlement on her face, so he just waved his hands and continued. Take height like this, if Akaros goes one-on-one with anyone of the same tier, then she can use about 100% of her ability, but if she enters a group fight against multiple enemies, then she would be able to perform outstandingly at something like 200% abilities. Mikoto caught the drift, but Hinajuku is still not convinced as she placed her hand on one of her cheek. According to what you say, Akaros becomes stronger in a group fight. Exactly. He laid it down. Akaros was engineered to become the multi-purpose war machine, every setting on her is made in consideration of group fights. That's why she shines in one versus many conditions. They nodded in understanding, but soon Hinajuku frowned again. But even if she gets stronger, there's a cap to it, right? I would guess that going up against 2 of the same tier is the limit, not to mention 3 people. Didn't I say it? That's only factoring in pure abilities. The most important point is that Akaros also has equipments at her disposal, 2 rare armaments with 1 more that is infinitely close to gold armament plus an actual gold armament. You think Akaros can still lose given this setup? The 2 girls winced. That's right, armaments. He grinned when he saw their reaction. Gold armament, that's something only a tier 9 would be swinging around. I for one do not believe that those 3 douchebags out there have gold armaments. Therefore, given the group fight affinity she has and the gold armament and rare armament that is close to being a gold armament, she definitely has a chance against the 3 tier 8s. TL, the author likes using double negatives for no apparent reason, using positives because it's easier to process that way. His words made Hinajuku and Mikoto lower their hearts and rethink about the feasibility of said fight. He's still confident in his stand while grinning, thinking about the fight between the tier 8s and Akaros. He licked his lips in excitement. That's why, let them fight mobs, we just have to sit at the sidelines and wait for the loots to drop, that will do. Chapter 97. The two girls felt a tiny bit of jealousy when they see how Wu Yan has complete trust in Ikaru's abilities. Mikoto turned her head away unamused, but she is still a bit concerned. Are you that sure Ikaru's could go up against 3 same-tier opponents? Strong as she is, isn't it pushing the boundary by asking her to go against 3 at the same time? That's right, Yan, this could be dangerous. Hinagiku looked a bit worryingly at Ikaru's before continuing. Are you certain that they don't possess a gold armament? If they did, what if Ikaru's gets hurt? The thing about her group fight affinity and gold armament are just your hypothesis, isn't it? If they're wrong and they do indeed have gold armaments, then the Ikaru's with power up and gold armaments can't fight against 3 same tier. What do we do then? Ikaru's, who was silent until now, finally raised her head and spoke in a soft but resolute tone. Ikaru's can fight. Hinagiku and Mikoto instantly turned in her direction and saw Ikaru's with her expressionless face. They turned back to Wu Yan while feeling helpless. A bit stunned for words, under the two girls' eyes, it feels like he did something terrible, and he shrugged his shoulders. You girls are right, there's always a possibility something might go wrong. That just now are but conjectures, but don't forget, even if she can't overcome them, once she drinks resplendent breath, with a 3-hour invulnerable, TL, are there any better terms? That means immune to harm but not status ailments. Physical and magical immunity is too wordy for the word, invul or invincible, then there really shouldn't be any more troubles, right? Oh right, there's still that thing. Hinagiku and Mikoto exchanged look and felt a bit of shame. Clearly, they have forgotten resplendent breath. Noticing this, he amusedly shaked his head before laughing. With resplendent breath and its 3 hours invulnerable status, even if Ikaru's resorts to scratching and grinding away their health, it would still be enough, so relax. Hinagiku and Mikoto nodded. Mikoto sighed a bit rueful. Sometimes, I feel like this system is fundamentally against the rules, against such an A.R.S.Nl of ridiculous items. Whoever is the enemy sure is going to be so sorry. Hearing her mumblings, he can't help laughing. The system is a cheat in the first place. You, and a bit of a troll as well. When the bodies on the ground has turned as skinny as a matchstick and every fluid inside them has been sucked dry, the magic formation finally showed its true power. The red sheen like that of a sunset disappeared gradually after the last drop of blood has flowed into the magic formation. The magic formation also returned to normal like everything before. This is only a decoration. Colus, Mamurai, and Jared aren't surprised by this, they are practically filled with joy at this. At the same time, they let down all guards. Their lips twitching ever so slightly and a smile widened on their face before finally they laughed out loud. This behavior, it seems they have achieved their aim. Their plan has come to fruition. And in fact, it did. The magic formation lost all its brilliance, but this caused the feeling of impending crisis in the Spider Queen. Every bit of frustration it had has now turned into a foreboding of death. The Spider Queen went into berserk. Taking advantage of the apparent downtime of the magic formation, the Spider Queen roared and stomped its many legs on the ground. The ground shattered under the force, the S.P.A.C.E around it reverberated, and the spider jumped up into the air, making some distance between it and the magic formation on the ground. However, before it could get delighted, a shapeless force smashed down upon its body. That force is something not even a tier 9 could resist with ease, and like a paper the Spider Queen got smacked down hard on the floor, right back in the magic formation it tried so hard to get away from. Colus and the gang displayed contempt at the Spider Queen's struggle. Compared to their alertness and intimidated appearances before, this is a completely new face. Their slimy character is now on full display, making Wu Yan curl his lips sarcastically. When the magic formation has not yet taken effect, they were going to turn tail and run at the slightest sound of wind, but now that they are hiding behind their magic formation, they are A.S. sure that victory is within their hands, and so they began to act all smug like the dirty snakes they are. The Spider Queen kept struggling. Its hiss could be heard echoing throughout this place, but no matter how it struggled to break free, it couldn't hoist itself back up. Like a whole mountain is pressing down upon its body, the weight it feels robbed it of all its mobility. Regarding the two escorts, they are already down on the floor. Colus and Co laughed even more loudly. One can't be sure if their laughs are a kind of signal or not, but while they are laughing, on the other side of the stone path came a bunch of footsteps sound. The auction firm people appeared in front of Wu Yan and Co, but what's surprising is not the auction firm people alone, but two other factions that are with them as well. Thinking about it, it hit him. I was thinking why there would be 3 tier 8s here. They can't all be from the auction firm, otherwise the auction firm would have showed no restraint throughout the supply town. Turns out, 2 of them belong to other factions. Can't blame Wu Yan for not noticing. Even if he has impeccable memory, he was preoccupied with the auction firm people. He didn't particularly mind the other factions, only noticing those tier 6 and above. That's why he didn't notice that there are 2 other factions hiding together with the auction firm people. Villains collude together, said an angry Kaiko-sama after seeing their appearances. Wu Yan looked at her a bit startled. Your Chinese set expressions are coming along quite well. The old auctioneer walked out from the crowd and to the Colus and Co side before bowing down and asking politely. Three esteemed ones, have you guys succeeded? Isn't that obvious? Colus waved his hands in a dismissive way unbecoming of one of his status. It looked like he's the king of the world acting in that manner. Although he sounded really poised, but one could hear the narcissistic tone just fine. After expending so much effort, if we didn't achieve anything, then that would have been absurd. Well, too bad, it's preordained that you guys won't get the last laugh. The old dude glanced at the Spider Queen. Feeling the intense aura of death and the pressure it exerts, as well as hearing that roar that creates sound shockwaves as it struggles, he got scared and trembled. Colus, end it? Mamurai could see the group frozen in place from the pressure. Raising his eyebrows, Jared also agreed with his suggestion. Colus shot a glare at the two for not giving him a chance to show off in front of his subordinates. He still took out a small red stone from his chest. The three got closer to the Spider Queen. They could see that while it's still roaring, its face had hostility written all over it, with eyes filled with killing intent and malice. Quite frankly, they are a bit intimidated by them. Colus threw a humph and felt his pride got hurt, because even though the monster is about to die, he still got scared. He nastily rubbed salt in the wound. Humph, tier 9, and so what? Still got defeated by me and is now about to die under me. Remember my name, Colus. That poser, he's practically making Wu Yan and company cringe with that little show of his. They threw the small blood-colored stone into the magic formation and withdrew. The stones evaporated under the watching eyes of the Spider Queen after rolling to the front of the Spider Queen. When the stone evaporated, the magic formation turned like it has received some kind of command. An ineffably complicated incantation danced into the air. A moving stream of object transformed from blood chi revolved around the Spider Queen and its two escorts. A blood-red barrier rised from the ground and covered the entire area, including the magic formation, along with the Spider Queen and its escorts completely covering them. The spider seemed like it could tell the outcome and wailed in anguish with such intensity that it shuddered people's heart. Boom. Chapter 98. Boom. A red pillar of light shot up towards the sky. Like a laser cannon, the magic formation blasted the stone ceiling. However, the stone ceiling isn't damaged in any way. It's as if the light pillar naturally belonged there. The pillar of light filled the inside of the magic formation. The Spider Queen and its escorts' cries of agony could be heard leaking from within it. Unprepared due to the suddenness of the loud boom from the magic formation, Wu Yan, Hinajiku, Mikato, and Lyran got dazed from the ensuing shock, and they started to grumble in pain. Akaros, on the other hand, isn't phased and is still as calm as ever. He's starting to question whether she is airheaded or just Kadir. TL, the original used 3 withouts, no mouth, no heart and no expressions. I didn't use this because it's clear that the examples mogirl.zh cited as models of this could be said to have heart, Nagato from Harui, Ayanami Rei from Evangelion, etc. The auction firm people watched the magic formation do its job with indifference. Red light flooded the inside of the magic formation, making anything within it observable to outside spectators. Except for the occasional screams of agony and a loud bang, there is nothing that could be seen from the outside. Looking at the progress of things, Colus can't help but burst out in laughter. The people behind them also started to reveal joyful looks. At this point, their plan has already come to fruition. Listening to the incessant laughter coming from them, Hinajiku and Mikato clenched their teeth hard. If not, they are afraid they really might just jump out. Right now they are feeling the deceased died in vain. Not only are they lied to, even after death they are still being exploited, and in such a cheap way as well. At the very least, the one celebrating will definitely not remember their utility and their worth. He knows what's making them so irate, but he stayed silent. He's not as kind as Hinajiku and Mikato, to feel sympathy for the dead. These deceased also held the same indifference to the death of their comrades. From his point of view, these people cannot redeem themselves even with their death. There's no particular need to remember their name. He has no qualm that he can't be as nice and merciful as Hinajiku. He's selfish and he knows this. The magic formation lasted for an unknown duration. At some point, the wails of agony completely stopped and the magic formation started turning slower and slower, as did the red light as well. Finally, it all stopped and disappeared. The Spider Queen and its escort laid silently within the magic formation. No trauma could be observed on their body, but the black humongous body has now turned into a ghastly white. Their eyes lost all its brilliance, and the aura of death that surrounds the Spider Queen is now gone without a trace. All traces of life has disappeared from them. Success. The treasure is ours. Similar to the ones who cheered after their defeat of the Anarchy Spiders, the Tumuk faction and auction firm people started jumping in joy. It's their happiest day yet. Mikato hit her limits. Looking at the stupid fools jumping around in joy on the field, her anger grew to a great extent. She has never been this angry, even after accounting for her temper. Yan, can we go out now? He looked at her and looked at Hinajiku before thinking about something, and then wryly laughed. Ma, I was planning on giving them the drop of the hammer after they have found the treasure, but since you girls don't want to hide anymore, then I don't have any opinions regarding this matter. The Spider Queen might have made an appearance and died, but he can't be sure that this place didn't have another boss lying in wait. Since the treasure has not been found yet, who could be sure that this place is completely safe? Let the sons of B.I.T.C.He's there go and map out the road and take some schmuck baits and get rid of some obstacles for them. That's a good alternative as well. But since Mikoto can't hold back anymore, Kaiko-sama brought out her Shiro Sakura, and he don't like any one of the people there. There's only one outcome: time to kick some A.S. If it really didn't turn out well and some unexpected situation they can't handle comes up, then they would only need to use the escape tools. Plus, if they can't handle it, he's sure the enemies can't as well, unless of course they go back and trick another batch of people and then set up another magic formation. Making up his mind, he turned to Ikaros and said, "Ikaros, I will leave the tier 8s to you. If you really can't handle it, drink resplendent breath, understand?" An indiscernible light flashed across her eyes. "Yes, master." He nodded before turning to Hinajiku and Mikoto. "Hinajiku, Mikoto, I will leave the little LAS.S to you girls. I will handle the mobs." "Eh? Why? I want to help too." Hinajiku grabbed little Lyran. "They've agreed to this beforehand, she's in charge of protecting her." Mikoto on the other hand isn't pleased. She just made the mental preparation to shock some fries, but Wu Yan shot her down. When she said this, he just retorted simply, "Can you kill them?" Stumped, she looked at the mobs before feebly continuing, "At least let me do a little fighting. Isn't it fine if I just maim them?" Not sure to laugh or cry, but hurting and not killing someone requires a lot of effort. The world is filled with nasty little C.O.C. croaches, TL, BTW, or little strong/resilient ones are nicknamed for C.O.C. croaches because these little F.U.C.Ks are as nasty as they are hard to eliminate. Even if they are beaten down, people might still crawl back up. Understanding the implications of his words, Mikoto stopped a bit before bracing herself back up and looked him in the eyes. Those eyes are filled with resolution and a little bit of begging. "Let me help please, there are tier 7s in there and quite a lot of peak tier 6, you're just a tier 6, you would be hard pressed against such odds. Let me help, I can't just sit by while my teammates fight." He lowered his head and went silent. Mikoto kept her eyes on him with hope and expectation written on her face. Meanwhile, Hinajiku nodded without saying a word and stayed silent. Her mission is to guard little Ol Lyran well. There are many more opportunities to help in the days to come. She still wants to help and share his burden, but in order to do that she must first get stronger. After a brief while, he gave in and laughed. "You girls scare me." Colus walked in front of the Spider Queen and kicked it while cursing. "Damn.nu monster, do you know how much effort went into planning how to deal with you? Now that you're finally dead, G.O.D, this feeling is so uplifting." Mamorai glanced over the Spider Queen coldly before looking at the stone path ahead of them. A bit impatient, he urged Colus and Jared, "Now, we can go to where the treasure is, right?" They returned to their senses when they heard the word treasure. After so many troubles, now the treasure is within their reach. Even thinking with their knees, one could guess that a treasure guarded by a tier 9 Spider Queen is definitely not something simple. They can't wait any longer. When they finally started to walk, a figure appeared before them. With no sound and presence, she surprised Colus, Mamorai, Jared. They widened their eyes. When they got a good look at the person and confirmed that it is indeed a person and that their eyes are not playing tricks on them, the three stepped back subconsciously while a drop cold sweat dripped down. This person appeared undetected by them. Just now, if she had ambushed them, that thought and the characteristic one wouldn't find on a human made them back away in wariness and raise their guard subconsciously. It's not that their situational awareness are low, it's because they didn't think that there would be a survivor. If she did sneak an attack, they would have been able to pick it up. That's why she chose a frontal A.S. Salt. "Who are you?" shouted Colus. Mamorai and Jared had the same expression as him while they kept their eyes on this figure. They felt more or less shocked. The reason is because the figure before them is not only very beautiful, she had a halo and wings of light growing on her back. With the enemies in her sights, she lifted her expressionless face and let out all her might. Ikaros. Engaging. Chapter 99 Part 1. Xiaozhou Grand Summoning Chapter 99, a fight between Tier 8s, PT1. An angel. That's everyone's first impression of Ikaros. Exquisite facial features, smoking hot body, a pair of blue wings of light flapping ever so often now and then behind her, and that pure white halo above her pink hair made her have an aura of divine dignity. What would they think if they knew this is Ikaros in battle mode? Of course they wouldn't know, because right now they are either awestruck or captured by that saintess-like beauty of hers. Ikaros didn't keep her image in mind. In her mind there's only the mission Wu Yan gave her, and that is Tier 8 foes in front of her. Confirming the targets, Ikaros moved her lips and a cool voice transferred into the ears of those present. Its content, however, stunned the ones present. After her voice fell, the S.P.A.Ce around them trembled and numerous metallic objects of unknown make appeared around her. Towards these odd items the group has never seen before, they felt only puzzlement, but Kolas and the other two instantly changed expression. When the metallic objects appeared, Kolas and Ko felt an odd sense of danger, and it was also the sense of crisis that moved their body and changed their expression, making a quick getaway from their current spot. Artemis. This salvo of perpetual homing missile is a must during her opening salvo. Maybe she herself doesn't even notice it, but most of her battles would start with an opening salvo of perpetual homing missiles. This time isn't any different either. The perpetual homing missiles is the opening shot declaring battle intention. Kolas and the other two who tried to dodge naturally wouldn't know that these metallic objects, which are perpetual homing missiles, can't be dodged. The metallic missiles drew an indescribable trajectory as they moved towards their startled targets. Quickly, the three separated ways to dodge the oncoming attack. The speed of these missiles aren't slow either. Compared to real missiles, their speed are fast. If not because Kolas and Ko aren't your average goons, they might have been hit long ago. When the missiles split ways and came at them again, their face finally changed from surprise into shock. Judging from the velocities these things are traveling at, one hit and it definitely wouldn't be a laughing matter. Rendered into a state of panic by Ikaros, Kolas and Ko got mad. They have always been the one that attacked and others dodged. Now look at them, played by a chick who emerged from G.O.D knows where. How can they not feel the rage? Dam.n. Don't look down on us, roared Kolas, and a giant arming sword appeared within his hands. The sword doesn't look that different from a normal one, but if the A.S. assumption that it is just a normal arming sword were made, the one making the A.S. assumption would die a very gruesome death. A missile caught up with him during the interval he drew his arms. With a roar, the veins on his arm popped and he swung his sword. A sword beam made out of battle chi shot out towards the missile. When Mamurai and Jared saw this, they took out their weapons as well. Mamurai had a pike and Jared had a double axe similar in length to the pike. Rare armaments. Under the A.S. stance of systems appraisal he could glean their armament level with just a glance. He breathed a sigh of relief for now. At least they didn't have gold armaments, but why temporary? He's just afraid that Kolas and Ko might really have some ace up their sleeves. He didn't have the luxury of observing the battle, not with angry A.S. mob rushing like wolves at him. It's as if they didn't want him to sit back and enjoy the song. Can they not be mad? After the appearance of the angel, this black-haired dude and the tea-colored hair chick kept watching the battle between the tier 8s and the angel. They lost count of how many times they asked who are you people and got splendidly ignored. If anyone can stay unperturbed given that kind of treatment, please send me a message. TL, the author didn't use any special punctuations to mark this, so I just translated as is. While the warriors are charging at them, the magicians at the rear began chanting. These magicians are the biggest threat. If they got hit with one wave of spell, then they would most likely get cut by the ensuing blades. He might have conceptual dragon armor and therefore can ignore all attacks below tier 6, but there are quite a lot of tier 6 here as well. Sighing, he turned to Mikato. Mikato, it's disadvantageous for us if we choose to group fight. Mikato threw a displeased look at the magicians, planning on shooting cold arrows at them before taking out a potion bottle and downing it in 2 to 3 gulps. Wu Yan chugged down the potion faster than she did. Grinning, he tossed the potion bottle away and then exchanging a glance with Mikato before jumping into the fray. Against Ikaros who could fly, Kolas and the other two are in a bind. They can achieve momentary flight by expending Dochi, but it's clear that they wouldn't be able to make agile maneuvers like Ikaros can. Ikaros who could make rapid and dynamic moves in the air is very troubling for them. Other than tier 7 magicians who could use flying magic, and barring other items, who else could fly as she can? Maybe if it were the demi G.O.DS who could fly with the same ease as walking, perhaps even the tier 9 supers can't achieve the same deftness she exhibits. Wu Yan didn't think that free flight would confer such a big edge, placing Ikaros in such an obvious advantage. Combine that with her impressive A.R.S.NL, maybe she really didn't need to drink resplendent breath like Wu Yan and Mikato after all. Shattering the missiles with their armaments, their faces are dark as still water, they are as upset as they are frustrated. That flying ability of hers is very hard to deal with, and these iron lumps dam.n it. Who is that woman? Those wings, is it a demonic beast? That can't be. I've never heard of a humanoid beast, except maybe it's a demi G.O.D tier demonic beast that has taken on human form. Well, that certainly can't be possible. If she's a demi G.O.D, why bother using iron lumps? She could just end this with a slap. Rendered dizzy by the barrage of missiles, Kolas cursed while swinging around his armament to get rid of the countless missile bombarding him, but every time he did, new ones would replace those destroyed immediately. Jared jumped to Kolas' side. Same goes for Mamurai. The three gathered before Jared continued. We can't continue like this. One of us will stop these flying metals, and another one will open a path, and the last one will attack her. Kolas and Mamurai thought for a bit and then nodded. There's no choice. If they didn't do these, then they would sooner or later be exhausted of their dochi and get scratched to death by the missiles. Jared swung his double axe and smashed all the missiles to bits. Jared and Mamurai leaped at Ikaros. Widening her eyes, Ikaros shot another round of perpetual homing missiles. Due to the close proximity, the barrage approached the two in an instant. Hurricane flash. TL. Mamurai thrusted his pike and a big amount of do-chi gathered at the tip of the pike. Channeling the chi, a burst of light shot out from the pike and destroyed the missiles. Jared smirked and leaped upwards and down towards Ikaros, and slashed his giant sword down. Chapter 100. The gigantic sword cut down mercilessly towards her face. The intense force generated made Ikaros' fluttery hair in Ura.N.U.S mode flutter even more. One could see just how strong this blow is. Against such an attack, Ikaros treated it as a minor issue. Without lifting a head, she moved only her lips to utter a word. Aegis. Colossus and his mountain-shattering giant sword stopped above Ikaros. Stunned, he poured more do-chi into his attack, but that didn't change the fact that he is still stopped. He gawked down only to see a layer of blue transparent circular barrier protecting Ikaros' front and no doubt blocked his attack. Colossus collected himself and toughened up before cutting down once more on the absolute defense circle. With a crisp sound, his attack got blocked again. Without giving him the leeway to muster up another attack, Ikaros cancelled absolute defense circle and did a 360-degree turn with her wings spread. Colossus got slapped far away by the backhand-looking wings. Mamurai appeared suddenly in front of Ikaros and thrusted his pike at her while Jared swung his double axe down at her back from behind. With shrinking pupils, Ikaros flapped her wings and dashed up and away from the pincer attack only to be ambushed by Colossus, who was waiting for her. Concentrating the do-chi in his body like mad, and channeling it all into his giant blade, it lit up with a flashy red and smirked at Ikaros, who went straight into his striking range. I would like to see if your S.H.I.Tty barrier can block my strongest battle skill. B.L.O.O.D.Y soul slash. Her already deep red irises flared up even more, reflecting the oncoming sword flash. With no other alternatives at hand, she deployed her barrier again. The baleful strike struck the barrier. Faced with the strongest skill of a same-tier opponent, the barrier could only hold on a bit before being reduced to shattered fragments. Colossus' battle skill continued without stopping. Failing to block the strongest attack, it did however mitigate the force and momentum of the attack by a lot. Lifting her hand, a concentrated miniature barrier formed, like a shield. It blocked his giant blade. What? He didn't even get the chance to rejoice about destroying that annoying turtle SHE.L.L of hers, and now his attack got blocked by another mini turtle SHE.L.L. Colossus can't believe what he is seeing. He can't accept the fact that his strongest battle skill got a no-sell just like that. Ikaros smashed a fist into a very surprised Colossus' face. The pitiful guy took flight once more, the first time a wing slap, and the second a fist in the face. Jared and Mamurai's face fell when they saw this. Among them, Colossus is strongest, his battle skill also contains the strongest destructive abilities among them, and yet he still can't harm her. Could she really be some kind of monster? Here comes another round of salvo. Seeing the sight of this flying metals that could rival Mosquito in terms of being tough escaping from, the trio can't help feeling their scalp paralyzing. Sure, it's annoying as mosquitoes, but getting hit by one of them is definitely not going to sting like one. Scampering away from the missiles they ran. And like usual, the missiles come flying at their A.S.ses again. Colossus and the gang quickly unleashed their battle skill to defend against the missiles. They looked so ghastly in the whole process. A bit farther down below, Wu Yan, who's in the middle of slaughtering, became excited. Honestly speaking, Ikaros going up against 3 same-tier opponents is worrying. If he didn't have Resplendent Breath and the Crystal Scroll, he wouldn't let Ikaros take this kind of risk. But lo and behold, Ikaros plus aerial advantage can actually fight on par with the 3 opponents while managing counter-strikes from time to time. As expected of one holding the T.I.Tle Sky Queen. At this rate, a reward is in order when they get home. Yes, it's decided. What he thought of when he said reward is up to one's imagination, but his toothy smirk and his horrifying laugh scared a would-be ambush from a warrior in his tracks, making him want to run away as quickly as possible. Can't help it, if we fight against her in the air it would be bad for us individually. Her strong defense is not helping either. I say we gang up. Shouting like that, it's like he's not afraid. Ikaros heard this. Forcibly channeling do-chi to achieve flight, Colossus, Jared, and Mamurai came at her from 3 different directions. Weapons in hand going cling-clang as they destroyed and cut their way through the missile salvos. Finally, closing in on Ikaros and using their battle skills in sync. Hurricane Flash. Heavy Berserk Strike. 3 persons, 3 skills, 3 directions, all of them aiming for Ikaros. If it hit her cleanly, it's clear that even Ikaros would be seriously harmed. Streaks of light flashed past her pupils as she calculated the magnitude of the force behind each strike. Deploying her barrier, she covered herself. Bam! The attacks connected in the blink of an eye. It hit the barrier with a loud clamor. At that moment, the blue light from the barrier, White light from hurricane flash, black light from heavy berserk strike and blood light from B.L.O.O.D.Y soul slash persisted in the air along with a loud boom. Wu Yan and Mikoto's heart stopped beating for a moment. They hastened their hands to end the battle just a bit quicker in order to give Ikaros a helping hand. Clang. Another loud sound came, but this time it's the sound of Ikaros' barrier being broken. Noticing this, Kolos and the other two put more force into their hands and came at her with vengeance. With 3 battle skills approaching, dodging being impossible, a streak of light flashed past her eyes before she moved her wings. It's useless. Thinking that Ikaros is going to use her wings to make a quick escape, the trio laughed at the thought. Being surrounded by their attacks from all directions, where is she going to fly to? Thinking somewhere along that line, the 3 moved their armaments and continued their effort of delivering those heavy attacks down on that super desirable smoking hot body of Ikaros. TL, weird time to be describing her body. Bangig. When Wu Yan heard this loud boom, his pupil shrank. Clenching his teeth, he unfurled one bout of chaotic return to horizon waltz and shredded 3 warriors to pieces before glancing at the sky. When he saw what happened, he calmed down. Ikaros shielded her body with her light wings and subsequently blocked the 3 attacks. This is impossible. Kolos went crazy when he saw this. How could he accept it when the strongest skill he takes pride in got blocked continuously like this, at least not with his big A.S.S pride. Mamurai and Jared drew out even more dochi, but like a steel-hard wall the light wings stopped their attack from advancing even after they used every last ounce of energy from drinking milk, TL, every last ounce of energy basically. Perhaps if Ikaros tried blocking with just her light wings at the start of the onslaught, then it would have been next to impossible to stop their skills. But too bad, their attacks are already weakened when they broke through the barrier by force. The remaining force could not achieve the threshold of breaking past her light wings. The trio collected their thought and thought that this might be the case as they draw back to prepare for another round of skills to once again attempt to take down Ikaros. Ikaros lifted her head swiftly and her light wings expanded several folds. With the flap of her wings, they overwhelmed Kolos and the other two, making them resort to a hasty retreat. Chapter 101. Before the Kolos and the other two can steady themselves, the homing missiles come flying at them again, just an instance of response incapability, and the missiles have already arrived. Contorting their face, they helplessly defended against the missiles with the armaments in their hands. The missiles exploded when it made contact with the armaments. It didn't really bring much harm, but it is definitely making them retreat further and further away. With the Ikaros, maintaining a distance between her and oneself isn't a wise choice. Her abilities made her a nightmare to engage in far range compared to close range. The result is, as they are seeing, countless missiles flying at Kolos and the other two. The flashes of dochi shined every now and then as the missiles danced in the air. The two sides' arms clashed and would hit the surrounding stone walls from time to time, making the ones battling on the floor fight with their guards raised against possible stray shots. Bam 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 bam. The battle between Ikaros, Kolos, Jared, and Mamurai dragged on, with both sides switching between offense and defense. The sound of clamor also didn't stop. It's either Ikaros having her missiles completely blocked or Kolos and the other two using their battle skill with Aegis negating most of the damage. This brawl has turned into one of attrition. No one side can end each other definitively. End it all. Ikaros may have the advantage of flight and excel in group fights, but Kolos and the other two has numerical advantage. After fighting for so long, the three could see that Ikaros is just the same tier as them. What the H.E.L.L, having the numerical advantage, and yet the three of them not only couldn't defeat her, they have to suffer through her counter-attacks intermittently. Their anger is slowly and surely building up. It's up to the point where they are on the verge of exploding with rage. Being of the same tier and excluding that flight ability of hers and having one more armament than them, there really isn't that much difference between them. Even so, surely she can't fight against three of the same tier without losing any grounds, right? And yet, this angel-like girl before them turned the impossible into possible. Kolos, Mamurai, and Jared don't know what the H.E.L.L it is, but quite clearly this angelic girl isn't that much stronger than Kolos, who's the strongest among them. So how is she able to achieve such a feat? After the befuddlement came jealousy, deep envy. What gives her the right? Why can she do something we can't when we are the same? Why can she go up against three of the same tier? Based on what? Does being able to fly really add that much to one's strength? They probably won't be able to figure this out in their entire life. Under the influence of envy and wrath, the trio's attack became more and more intense. Ikaros is starting to feel the pressure now as she frantically reacted to them. If Kolos and the other two thinks it's a pain to deal with Ikaros, then Ikaros' thoughts are mutual. She is holding on with her flight and group fighting capability, but as time drags on she is starting to grow weary of this fight. At the end of the day, the enemy has the numerical advantage and they are of roughly same power compared to her. On the surface it might look like she's fighting without losing ground, but that's only because Ikaros is not letting on about how hard this is. Whenever the barrier is broken, she has to use her wing to block the attacks. She might be able to block them, but some of the force from the battle skills are still transmitted from the wings to her body. On the surface, it might look like she's okay, but inevitably she has been hit. Only she knows that their battle skills aren't ineffective. This is within Wu Yan's expectation. He has confidence in her abilities, but despite that she is still fighting against three of roughly the same strength as her. She might able to pull off a parity in battle power by leveraging her group fighting excellence and flight ability, but it would take a whole lot more to attain victory. The original plan was that Ikaros would delay them until such time that he and Mikoto deal with the small fry, and then they would gang up on the three. Wu Yan and Mikoto might not be able to compete fairly with Colossus and the other two. However, with the help of Resplendent Breath, it's not like there's no chance at all. Yes, as you may have noticed, there are AF.U.C.K ton of IMO, redundant double negatives. Ikaros on the other hand doesn't have the same thought. The three before her is the enemy of her master and poses threat to him. Thus, they must be eliminated. That is what's going through her mind at the moment. Wu Yan didn't consider what she might be thinking, but even if he did, he wouldn't worry too much about it. Ikaros has X1 Resplendent Breath on her, so if worse comes to worst, she can just drink it and turn the scales in her favor as she pleases. More importantly, Ikaros has not shown her true power yet. The status quo at the moment is that she's able to achieve fight toe-to-toe against Colossus and the other two with her ability of flight and group fighting capabilities. That is indeed so, but are there no other advantages she has? It would be wrong to assume she doesn't. Wu Yan and Ko knows it. Ikaros still has her strongest ace up her sleeve. Ikaros deployed her barrier and then stopped the pincer attack from the three tier 8s with her light wings in her usual calm manner before promptly sending them flying with a wing slap. The difference this time is that she didn't follow up with salvos of homing missiles. She reached out her left arm and drew a THO.R.N.Y dark uniquely designed bow from thin air. Everyone watch out, the woman just took out another armament. Jared shouted at Colossus and Mamurai when he saw the armament materializing. They gnashed their teeth as they vigilantly observed her movements. Each of these gentlemen only have a rare armament at their disposal, but this winged woman has up till now demonstrated an unseen armament that can fire flying explosive metal object and a defensive armament. Now she's taking out another piece of armament. This is a first time even for Mamurai, who runs the auction firm. Ikaros didn't care what they thought of this. Left hand on the bow and right hand slowly drawing back, purple light gathered around the bow in tune with her actions, and an arrow soon appeared, knocked on the bow. Get F.U.C.Ked. The purplish lights flowed all over the bow and black light started gathering at the tip of the arrow, charging up the arrow with the power of destruction directed aimed at Colossus and the other two. Just the act of being aimed made their hair stand on ends immediately, eyes opened wide and jerking their bodies. The light within her eyes condensed before she released her hand. The arrow morphed into a ray of dark light and flew towards the three. Apollon. Danger, 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 danger. These words rang over and over inside their mind as they stared at the oncoming dark ray. They felt something cold creeping up inside them. Dodge. Colossus roared and dashed for the side at a speed faster than he has ever mustered up before. Jared and Mamurai recovered from their panicked state before channeling Dochi like their A.S.SESR on the chopping blocks and broke through their previous limit, making a quick escape to the side. The three didn't even consider the option of blocking it because their guts are telling them even if they use their strongest battle skill along with their armament, they will still die. Their intuition is accurate and inadvertently saved their lives. The black arrow scratched past their bodies and struck the ground with an unimaginable speed. Kaboom! In an instant the terrifying energy was released in a loud bang and blowing everything around it, be it people or objects, to oblivion. All are wiped clean off. The winds raged and the ground got demolished in that short moment of time. Chapter 102. This really is quite. Wu Yan and Mikoto exchanged glances while looking at the spectacle before them. They had the same feeling, that is a feeling of being fortunate, while they patted their chest in relief. Colossus, Mamurai, and Jared stood slack-jawed when they saw the ground. What was it like? Well, the originally cracked battle-torn surface is now completely gone after a hit from Apollon. It's not just the ground, even the small fries that were battling against Wu Yan and Mikoto got obliterated with nary a trace left on this world. The only trace that could be seen is one huge A.S.S hole in the ground about 100 meters in diameter. Just one shot from Ikaros and poof, 70% of the hostiles that were busy engaging with Wu Yan and Mikoto got Ma.S. Sacred. Gulp. Gulp, the lucky ones who weren't in the immediate area of effect or those who got out just in time. Of course, including Colossus and the other two as well. The remainder of them either got hurt from the aftermath or got sent flying by the ensuing raging winds. Those unfortunate ones who got incapacitated by Mikoto also died from Apollon. If Wu Yan and Mikoto didn't drink Resplendent Breath beforehand, they are going to get hurt if not dying. Given of course, that if they didn't drink Resplendent Breath, Ikaros wouldn't have shoot there in the first place. Thinking about how he was having the time of his life cutting down people over there, he gulped. Note to self, Ikaros is not just naturally airheaded, Her latent attribute might very well be airheaded evil. Don't f.u.c.k around with her, absolutely not. TL, combining the natural airhead with Haraguro or evil hidden by a mask inadvertently or intentionally is irrelevant. Examples cited by Mo girls are Haimji from Baka and Test, Yamada Aoi from Working, Uiru from Toaru. That monster. At this moment, Colas, Mamurai, and Jared are not angry or jealous anymore. Those emotions got blown away with that terror-inducing strike of hers. Replacing those feelings, a little bit of fear could be seen from their eyes. They haven't felt this kind of fear since the encounter with the Spider Queen. Missing, Ikaros moved her slender hand and onto the bow it went. Stop her. Don't let her fire that armament again. Colas and the other two practically had their souls jumping out. TL, P.I.S. Sing their pants, they were so close to throwing away the armament in their hands. That alarming destructive power, that bow can only belong to the absolute highest of rare armaments. To dodge that arrow, they used up 50% of their dochi just for that short overcharge of their power, and now their bodies are hurting all over. All of that barely got them through one arrow. Now if another came at them, they dare not continue with their imagination. Ignoring the intense agony of their practically crying bodies, the three channeled their dochi and rushed like their lives depended on it. The act of drawing and knocking requires time, not to mention the fact that Apollon needs charging time as well. The time frame may not be too long, but it is there. Perhaps Colas and the other two might not have been able to stop it just a few moments ago. But right now, under the threat of death, the three individuals practically exploded. They didn't care about the stress their body is taking from the intense channeling of dochi and jumped at her like mad. They didn't give her the chance to knock an arrow and raised their arms against Ikaros, to which she could only block with the bow. TW.A.N.G. Blocking the three's attack, she got pushed back by the force. Raising Hiriad, she saw three red-eyed individuals charging at her again. Deploying her barrier, she blocked the attacks. Only by using their strongest battle skills can they break through the barrier, so normal attacks naturally wouldn't work on the barrier. Colas and the other didn't give a damn. At this point, if they stopped, that horrid arrow would be shot, and they didn't have the confidence to say they can dodge the arrow. Desperate, Colas, Mamurai and Jared kept swinging and swinging their armament down on the barrier. While deploying her shield, Ikaros can't use Apollon, she can't even use Artemis. So she retreated while deploying the barrier, looking for another chance to fire an arrow. But Colas and the other two wouldn't give Ikaros any inch to use Apollon. When she retreated, they pushed and kept attacking the barrier. It's not that they don't want to use their battle skills, but if they did, Ikaros would immediately use Apollon, at which point, the ones dying would absolutely be them. Even if the situation is dire, they can only keep this up while the intense rounds of defense and offense are taking place. Wu Yan and Mikoto has already dispatched the ones on the ground. Looking up, they felt helpless. Well, what can they do? They can't fly. Even if he bought a tool that allowed temporary flight, it would be impossible to intervene like this. Thus, they stood there watching. Ikaros noticed Wu Yan and Ko had put down their enemies, and she looked at the three persons still attacking her barrier. It looked like she resolved to something, and she stored away the bow. Colas and the other two are startled by this development and stayed their hands for a moment, being unable to comprehend. Why store away that horrifying weapon? They didn't know that the real nightmare has yet to come. Ikaros suddenly spread her light wings wide, and the wings flickered before turning to 12 light sashes-esque objects. Colas and the other two are even more baffled after seeing the scene, but seeing as this might be a chance, they stopped and gathered their dochi, preparing to unleash their battle skills and break through the barrier in one go. Wu Yan's eyes, on the other hand, are shining bright. That's because the scene is a familiar scene, a scene he has seen countless times before on screen. He knows, the Ikaros now is in the truest meaning the strongest version of her. Connect. Her wings extended and reached for either side. Suddenly, the S.P.A.Ce itself rippled when the light sashes touched them. It reached inside the ripple and looked like it disappeared into thin air to outside viewer. A short burst of light flashed, and following a jolt of electricity spreading out, a hologram started appearing. Soon, a fighter jet-looking figure started appearing like an illusion behind her back. What is she planning to do now? This bizarre scene would naturally not go unnoticed by anyone. Having a prior experience, something snapped with the Katak SFX inside Colas and the other two. They felt some bad feeling creeping up. Looking at Colas and the other two, her expressionless face took on a slight sense of coldness. Arms spread wide, a few cannons started appearing from thin air. Ura.N.U.S system. What the F.U.C.K is that S.H.I.T? The cannons appearing gave them the shock of their lives. It felt like living all this while, all the previous surprises they encountered could not total up more than today. Gawking at the towering cannons, the three can't help stepping back. That's a fighter aircraft. Mikoto and Hinajiku are stupefied by the Ura.N.U.S system behind Ikaros. Their mouths are opened so wide, their jaws almost fell to the floor. Rather than fighter aircraft, it would be more apt to call her Ura.N.U.S system a battle fortress. Wu Yan amusedly say. With eyes shining bright with excitement, how he has longed to see this in real life. When Mikoto heard this, she asked him. Ura.N.U.S system? That's Akaro's gold armament, right? When he nodded, she returned her sight to Ura.N.U.S system with twitching lips. Who would have thought? TL, in case anyone is wondering what it looks like, look below and skip to 18:28 if you just want to see its form. It's episode 13 of the anime series BTW. Chapter 103. Series. TL, a stronger version of her homing missile, or Artemis +1 if you will. The small missiles formed at the cannon and hovered by Akaro's side before flying at Colossus and the Otter too. Immediately, the three flew back. Could that armament be the one that's firing all these flying metals? They summed the flying aircraft is so, since the flying metals are formed there. Rather, they heaved a sigh of relief. They aren't afraid of the flying metals, what they are really afraid of is that she would take out something as scary as that bow armament from before. Alas, they didn't know that the Ura.N.U.S system is in fact scarier than Apollon. Maybe due to the indifferent attitude she felt from Colossus, Mamurai, and Ard, Akaros waved her hands and many more missiles formed at the cannon of Ura.N.U.S system before flying straight for Colossus and the other two. Against such a ghastly amount of homing missiles, Colossus and the other two finally showed some panic. While retreating, they are also simultaneously destroying oncoming missiles. However, very soon, new homing missiles would replace the ones destroyed. The three dudes wanted to curse out loud. Those flying pieces of F.U.C. King metals are a major stick in the bunk hole. The only saving grace is that those things before are only annoying as H.E.L.L, they can't bring harm to them who possess the same rare armament. But the things is, Quant.I.Tai has a quality all its own. With such a drastic change in the amount of homing missiles, if they are still A.S. Summing these things can't bring them harm, then they might as well look forward to a chat with the Spider Queen. They clenched their teeth and kept on the retreat while forcibly channeling their dochi and charging it into their armament. When they managed to retreat to a certain distance, they are finally done with charging and they unleashed their battle skills all at once, destroying every homing missiles coming their way. At this juncture, they are all panting and heaving. They can feel the exhaustion of their supply of dochi, not to mention the harm their body suffered when they forcibly overcharged their dochi. With heavy countenance, they looked at Akaros with a hateful glare. Can't blame them, they were so close to the treasure and bam, out of nowhere, a monster comes to F.U.C.K things up with her weird armament and that annoying pair of wings. She practically screwed them over. How can they not hold any hard feelings over this? They were suspecting that maybe she's another guardian of this place, but after seeing Wu Yan and Mikoto and the dead bodies that were their henchmen wasted on the floor, they knew what is going on already. Guardians my A.S., they are clearly just another treasure looter. Rendered unstable by hate, the three roared and rushed at Akaros. They completely forgot about the existence of Apollon. Calmly looking at the approaching three individuals, she pointed at them and the cannons behind her started gathering light, and with another wave of her hand, lasers in the form of pillars of light were fired. The lasers came so fast the three couldn't come any closer before getting blasted in an instant. Hit by it, the three coughed up blood and dropped down onto the ground while spilling blood. Their overheated brains finally calmed down a bit with this. Of course, the price they paid for this is a hefty one. While the three are still falling down, Akaros didn't have any intention on being lenient. As a strategic angeloid made for the purpose of war, and as the Sky Queen who has been through many battles, the blood on her hands, even if not in centimillions, are in the tens of millions. She might be pure and kind, but she is most definitely not merciful. With a wave of her hand, homing missiles formed in droves and flew straight at the three falling figures. Before they could touch the ground, they got hit head-on with the salvos. Bam! Boom! Boom! The sound of explosions didn't stop coming. The ones that didn't hit the target fell on the surroundings, giving the already hole-ridden ground some more trauma. We did it! Mikoto hurraed while streaks of lightning flashed about her, Wu Yan starting to wonder if she is just itching for a fight rather than happy. However, he's not as optimistic as her. Akaro's homing missiles has the firepower no doubt, but it being enough to end Colossus and Co is something he doesn't believe. They are Tier-8s, they can't die just like that. Well, his thoughts are on the spot, that's for sure. At ground zero, black smoke rised, but it didn't last long. A gust of wind blew always the smoke, and what appeared was Colossus and the other two pointing their armaments imbued with thick dochi at Akaros. Don't think we have to get close just to attack you, he said while looking all B.L.O.D.Y and ragged. It appears the three took quite a hit from the homing missile barrage. Colossus maniacally laughed and the three shouted in SNC before piling their armament together. Their dochi showed signs of merging. Their barely pas.sable amount of do-chi grew to another level altogether and a substantial force started coming out of the armaments. As war arose, long-ranged attacks are not that many in number. But as tier 8s, they do have some in their repertoire. The downside is that these skills are 1 CLA.S.S lower than their strongest battle skills. What could these half-baked skills do against Ikaros when they need to use their strongest skills just to break through her barrier? Under the might of her abnormal armament, engaging her in close quarter isn't as easy as before, so the three though up of another method, that of merging battle skills. Not just any skill could be merged, the con is that their already battered body took on more damage. They are going to die if they didn't do this anyway, might as well bet on this attack. A gigantic amount of do-chi coalesced on the three's armaments and wind started to gush out from the armaments, turning into streams of small gusts that blew away the pieces of rubble around them. Wu Yan and Mikato retreated to a safe distance. While they have drunk resplendent breath, they still reflexively drew a distance from the dangerous place. Their actions are like that of a starter pistol being fired. As soon as they got away, Colossus and the other two's charging came to its peak. Exchanging glance with camaraderie, the three raised their arm and swung all at once in Ikaro's direction. A gigantic do-chi wave formed from the armaments and came flying at Ikaros. Judging from how the wave can generate a high-pitched wind wail, it seems this attack is stronger than when they each individually used their strongest battle skills. Too bad, Ikaros didn't think much of their attack. The do-chi wave might be dangerous to any other person, but Ikaros calmly looked at it as it approached with no change to her expression, nor did she make any statement. Colossus and the other two got even more confident that their attack would make a hit when they saw her reaction. When the do-chi wave finally arrived, she finally made a move. She lifted her head slightly and a few drones came out of Ura.N.U.S system and hovered in front of her. The drones then stopped and stayed fixed in place before projecting a screen of light before Ikaros and completely blocking the attack. The screen of light wavered like it can't hold up before reflecting the do-chi wave. Impossible. Soon after that shout, the three got hit with their own do-chi wave. Following a loud boom, the three fell down while coughing up blood and lying in their own pool of blood. Ikaros spread her arms wide and swung it down. The light barrier wavered before shooting a huge A.S.S laser pillar at the pool of blood that is Colossus and the other two. While they are still busy feeling agony over their injuries, the laser fell and they turned into scattered ashes and dispersed smoke. TL, Chinese forward idiom for, wrecked/carbonized/extirpated/annihilated/served/f.u.c.ked/ or any other words that means they got owned. Chapter 104. Wu Yan, Hinajiku, and Mikato are currently completely stunned. Yes, even Wu Yan, who had a ton of confidence in Ikaros. How could this real-life scene even compare to the one seen on screen? The giant pillar of light descending from heaven didn't just pulverize Colossus and the other two in an instant. It struck a very deep impression into the Wu Yan and Co. Comparing her joy and pride railgun against that laser in all its glory, Mikato felt like hers didn't really match up to it. When this submissive thought started floating up, Mikato broke the train of thought immediately. She's going to save her sisters, how can she give in to something like this? Blowing all of her sense of frustration, a new feeling started up, the burning feeling of PAS.Zion. Someday, Misaka Mikato will be just like that light pillar. No, I will transcend that light beam. Bluish-white lightning arc started raging around her. The lightning flowed faster and faster until nothing but brilliance could be seen around Mikato's body. The sudden transformation gave Wu Yan and Hinajiku a jump. The strong light rose drastically in intensity as the lightning raged violently like a raging storm. Some of it got into the ground and headed straight for Hinajiku and Wu Yan. He turned grim and raised his hand to block the oncoming stray electricity. It should be easy to stop this flow of electricity seeing as they both have the same ability, but what's surprising is that he can't seem to exert control over the stray power. His body had a taste of lightning as a result. He wasn't harmed due to having the same ability, but he got stunned in place, unable to move. He's pretty shocked at this revelation. But there wasn't any instance of this phenomenon before. This discharge of electricity is clearly a few times stronger than her peak discharge before. Judging from how she looks a bit panicky, it's ridiculous, but it seems she's doing this without conscious command. What happened? Hinajiku, who's hiding behind Wu Yan, is curious as to why Mikato suddenly went crazy. Wu Yan frowned. He saw the aura on Mikato growing stronger and stronger before raising an eyebrow and exclaimed, "No. I think Mikato is ascending." Ascension. Hinajiku jerked. Mikato also flinched when she heard this. She got excited soon after. Striving to get the lightning under control, MK unleashed her computational capabilities and reined in her raging electricity gradually. It seems he's correct. As it turns out, she's able to control her powers. Very soon, the electricity she discharged were back in her control and slowly she absorbed it back into her body. She assessed the condition of her body while closing her eye. Soon, she opened her eyes and yelled in joy. It's true. I can feel that while my ability is still at LV5, it has increased a lot in strength. Well, it looks like you have successfully made it to tier 8. Wu Yan's happy, she's elated. To him, the ascension was just a matter of time. Summing they keep framing mobs, but this is a big deal to Mikato. According to her estimates, Accelerator is a tier 8. This rise to tier 8 meant that she can now fight on par with Accelerator. Is this Ento a happy news to her who has the thought of saving the sisters every day on her mind? It's not just Mikato, Yan. You and me both also ascended. With Lil Lyran in her arms, Hinagiku said. She had utilized the system A.N.A.lytic function and glanced over everyone including herself before happily continuing. He checked his level and turns out he ascended to tier 7 now. Not just him, Kaiko-sama got power leveled to tier 7 as well. What a haul. 3 tier 8s, close to 7 tier 7s, some tier SIXS, a ton of tier 5 and below. It's no wonder Wu Yan got to tier 7 and Mikato got to tier 8. Hinagiku's level weren't that high to begin with. With such a big amount of mobs to farm from, it's as easy a grinding as they ever come. TL, Raw used something along the lines of she got the best keep fit or beauty maintenance she could get. It's also understandable she got a boost to tier 7. Now their lineup is composed of 2x tier 8, 2x tier 7, 1x mascot, TL. The author used counter for animals rather than human when referring to Lyran. If they walked on the streets with this kind of company in tow, jaws will be dropped. That is if they can detect their strength to begin with, of course. So far this treasure hunting trip has been worth it even without finding out what the treasure is yet. There is something tiny he's feeling a bit B.U.T.3rd over though. How come Sister Railgun gets a light show when she ascended? It didn't help that it looked so bada.s.s, one can't miss it as well. When he ascended, not even a toot of fart could be heard. Ugh, to make comparisons between individuals. Master. Akaros, who returned to her normal state, descended down in front of them. He rubbed her head before continuing in a soft manner. Thanks for the hard work, Akaros. Veritably, the expedition this time wouldn't have been as successful without Akaros' help. At least 80% of their progress so far could be attributed to her efforts. When Akaros heard him, her eyes wavered a bit before she lowered her head to bask in the warmth of the hand upon her head. The warmth warmed up her heart and body as she closed her eyes while enjoying the warmth. Afterwards, Wu Yan and company cleaned up the bodies and released the blindfold on Lyran. Heya, an energetic and bubbly Lyran returned. Cleaning up the whole battlefield, Wu Yan and company swiped away everything. The bounties are, 30 plus mainstream armament, 3 rare armament looted from Culus and the other 2. Into his pocket, they all went. Then there are some mixed items like coins and stuff. Of course, Wu Yan humbly undertakes the obligation to take real good care of them, and into his S.P.A.ce ring they go. The armaments are all turned into equipment points, some 50,000 PTS to be exact. And he tried something out and sold the Spider Queen, an escort's body up to the system and got a nifty 600,000 back as item points. That's a pleasant surprise in itself because the spiders from before can't be turned into points. He thought that the 3 boss would be the same as well, so. Summing everything up, his mouth almost changed into that resembling a hippopotamus. He got the levels and he got the resources, what can he say? Culus and the other 2 are good guys inside his book. Unit Wu Yan abilities: Kendo Master, Master Chef, Impeccable Memory, Chaotic Return to Horizon, Waltz, Electro Master, LV4, Equipment Need No Shana, Grade C, Conceptual Dragon Armor, Grade C, Summons Misaka Mikato, Katsura Hinagiku, Akaros equipment points 21,000 rightward arrow 71,000 item points 8,100,000 rightward arrow 8,800,000 ability points 101,000 summoning points 120,000 level 50 rightward arrow 6.5. Unit Misaka Mikato abilities: Electro Master, LV5, Power C rightward arrow B, Endurance C rightward arrow B, Agility B rightward arrow A, Psychological A, Equipments None level 69 rightward arrow 70. Unit Katsura Hinagiku abilities: None, Power C rightward arrow B, Endurance D rightward arrow B, Agility C rightward arrow A, Psychological C rightward arrow B, Equipments Shiro Sakura, D rightward arrow C grade, level 35 rightward arrow 60. Unit Akaros ability: Ura.N.U.S Queen Mode, Power A, Stamina B, Agility B rightward arrow A, Psychological A, Equipment Artemis Perpetual Homing Missile, Grade C, Aegis Absolute Defense Perimeter, Grade C, Apollon, Grade C, Ura.N.U.S System, Grade B, level 77 rightward arrow 7.8. All in all, they got a F.U.C.K ton of upgrades this time around, disregarding the series of B in their stats. The odd part about all of this is how Kaiko-sama's Shiro Sakura upgraded from being D-ranked. When they asked the system later on, the answer was that since Hinagiku didn't have any abilities and her stats are dirt poor at summoning, so system upgraded her equipment. Yet another pleasant surprise. Chapter 105. TN, quick note, Invincibility potion will be changed to damage immunity potion from now on based on because there's an event in the future that brings doubt into whether or not invincibility is the correct word for this potion. Without further ado, enjoy. P.S. Yeah, might wanna come back when I hit chapter 110, winking and laughing. After asking the system and being told that because Hinagiku has low stats and inadequate survival skills, the system decided to give her sword, Shiro Sakura, an upgrade. Different from Hinagiku and Mikoto, who are currently jumping in joy, Wu Yan is shocked to hear of this. Through various past experience with system he has come to a conclusion. The system is a troll, I will be dam.net if it has any sign of being kind. And so, a discussion that seems r.e.t.a.r.ded to third-party observer begun. System, yeah sure, it's because Hinagiku has low stats and that's why you gave her equipment and upgrade. No expense on my account or anything of that sort. Like PTS or whatnot. This is an independent action taken by the system, points need not be paid. What about other kinds of cost? There is none. You sure? Affirmative. No insidious plot or anything like that. User, please don't slander the system lest the system sues you. What the f.u.c.k is this s.h.i.t, a system that sues? I would like to see who you're going to turn to sue me. User, please don't slander the system or your account will be banned. Oh, with no one to help in taking legal action, now you want to drop the ban hammer on me? I call bulls.h.i.t, exactly which account on me you're gonna ban b.i.a.t.c.h. Unit, Wu Yan. Yeah? Ban my a.s.s? And what if I got banned, so what? The user will be unable to access the system. Never mind what I said, it's my fault. Shiro Sakura can't be upgraded ad infinitum. System said this weapon can only be upgraded to a cap of rank B, i.e., gold armament. If this weapon is to be further upgraded PAS.S that tier, then points must be given to fit the requirement for an upgrade. They are still satisfied with this revelation though. Who wouldn't want a free upgrade? Plus, Hinagiku seems to have taken a liking to Shiro Sakura, even if the weapon can't be upgraded she wouldn't trade equipment, so in a way, this is for the best. Before they have even laid eyes on the treasure they have already made so much profit from this treasure hunting expedition. He can't help wanting to grind a few more times. Alas, reality isn't like that of a game world. The mobs won't respa.w.n and the loot won't drop again. The revolution is at hand yet, comrades still need to push on. TN, author used a famous quote from founding father of the Republic of China, in this case it would mean the journey is far from over, whereas the line was originally used in the context that since the founding father has yet to achieve his objectives but is on his deathbed, he wrote wills and urged that his successors carry on and see that revolution takes place. I'm not that good at history and even more so when it comes to foreign history like China, but basically Sun Yat-sen put an end to Qing dynasty with his revolution, which is pretty bada.s.s. Any, Uni-I-chan, Tn Lyran switches over to using the proper Mandarin name for brother here, but I kept Uni-I-chan because I can. Let's go find that treasure. Knowing that the enemies have been vanquished, little ol Lyran can't wait to get to treasure hunting. It seems towards treasure hunting is an allure no kid can resist. You're right, the real treasure hasn't even been obtained by us. Lifting his head, he glanced ahead and then exchanged sight with Mikoto, Hinagiku, Akaros, and Lyran. Grinning, he dramatically waved his hand forward. Walking along the path, Wu Yan and company walked at a prudent pace. Body know for sure whether or not there is still any danger to this place. Prudence turns out to be necessary. En route, there aren't any stone spiders or signs of any other guardians, but there sure are a ton of traps, enough to send shiver up anyone's spine. A wrong step and one would trigger magical formations. The effects of those magical formations are so numerous and diverse it's to the point that it's limited only by the victim's imagination. It's fortunate that the ones leading them are Wu Yan and Mikoto, who have drank resplendent breath. Otherwise, any normal person would have died multiple times in multiple ways that even their mama won't recognize their bodies. The result of their actions, of course, it led them to become the minesweepers for the group, and they walked ahead of the group. The two of them has triggered no less than 100 traps in this manner. Watching the two fall yet again into another magic trap from behind, Hinagiku stayed a pretty safe distance away while being a little traumatized. It's the first time in her life that she's glad of being weaker in relative terms. She didn't have to fight and as such don't have to drink resplendent breath and subjected to such torture. It's not limited to Hinagiku, just ask the victims at hand. Wu Yan and Mikoto are both on the edge of snapping. Even if they weren't any physical harm done upon their body, the psychological damage done is very real. It's at this moment that Mikoto felt a tinge of regret. If she knew beforehand, she would have spared some of the people from before and let the mooks have a taste of the delicious traps lying in wait for them. Dejected, the two continued walking at the front. Make no mistake, they are both on the verge of crying, but finally the end of the stone path appeared in front of Wu Yan and company. It's a stone room, its architecture is no different from the stone path they traversed, a room made completely of stone. What's different is that this room is wider than the stone path and its walls are polished to a great extent. Inside the stone room, there's a round table. A stone round table to be more specific, and on it are 3 boxes along with a crystal ball. Besides the table and its content, there's nothing else. That's right, nothing else. Wu Yan, Hinajiku, Mikoto stared blankly. As for Lyran, one could almost see disappointment written across her face. They have seen bodies, encountered monsters, met with conspiracy and fell into traps. That didn't stop them from reaching this place at no small trouble to them. What do they find at the end of it all? Screw treasures, it's just a empty A.S.S room with 3 inconspicuous boxes plus a crystal ball. That's it, nothing else. At the risk of their lives, for this? If it were any person they would surely freak out right now, right? The damage is less for them though, since they aren't particularly obsessed with the treasure, albeit interested. If it were Culus and company they would most likely slay their party in madness. The reason they came here is because Wu Yan heard the Tier 9 Super came back with mortal wounds and the 200,000 summoning points crystal from this place. That's why he decided to come here and see what luck brings them. He welcomes any and all treasure, but even if he didn't get any he wouldn't be too depressed over it. Disappointment, however, is definitely there. The path here has been a gigantic pain in the A.S.S after all. No matter how you okay at it, this place doesn't look like the treasure room, does it? Hinajiku got over this matter after quickly glancing over the room. Considering the fact that she raised her strength from tier 4 to tier 7 and that she isn't really in this for the treasure in the first place, this much is nothing. Mikoto on the other hand looked crestfallen. She's been thinking about what a treasure trove would look like and suffered through the various traps on the path here only to find this here. How would she be satisfied with just this much? In a certain way, Railgun is still a kid. As for Wu Yan, well, he's unperturbed. Much as he would like to object to how accustomed he is to being screwed over, he admits that being at the receiving end of nasty surprises has instilled in him resilience to this kind of outcome. After glancing over at the boxes and crystal ball on the stone table, he thought for a bit before continuing. Well, it's not nothing. Aren't there 3 boxes over there? Let's go take a look, maybe there are still some things to be gained. He has a feeling that he's right towards the end of his statement. A tier 9 Spider Queen as guardian. It's impossible for there to be nothing, it didn't look like anyone made this far either. The 3 boxes must have some jig in them. This thought resonated within Mikoto and Hinajiku, and they honestly felt that the boxes might just surprise them, and thus the 3 went over to the table to have a look at the 3 boxes. There are characters on the 3 inconspicuous boxes. The words made any disappointment they have had before to disappear. First box, written here, open it, and you shall obtain fortune that can match what this world can offer. Second box, open it, and you shall obtain authority that can match what this world can offer. Third box, open it, and you shall obtain power that can match what this world can offer. These 3 boxes can't be distinguished from each other except by the words after them. Wu Yan and company's attitude towards the boxes changed, they aren't treating them as just some boxes now. This would apply to anyone in the same situation. If what it says is true, then the 3 boxes gave anyone anything they could possibly ask for. Fortune. Authority. Power. Besides these, what else could anyone wish for? Perhaps some enlightened individuals would be able to ignore this, but too bad Wu Yan can't. He likes money. His situation is better than when he was still an otaku who needs to worry about the next meal. Money really isn't that big a deal for him as long as he have enough of them at his disposal. Authority, he feels indifferent on this one. He's not a man of high ambitions. What he has, is a PAS.Zion for 2D characters. Do you need authority when you have Xiaojous? Oh, but power, this thing here is the most alluring one of them all. Chapter 106. As part of the glorious party of transportees, and an avid reader of countless transport-themed stories, Wu Yan understands a fundamental principle. Being transported is a good thing because after that you're the MC. As the MC, one must have the power to back it up, otherwise one can only be part of the mob fodders. It doesn't matter whether or not it's soul transport amidst chaos, TL, not sure about this, transport by reincarnation, full body transport, A.N.A.L transport, whatever the H.E.L.L transport. What's important is that one must have power, and only then will he cool as F.U.C.K. Given of course, except for some special case. Being a transportee in a world governed by the rule of might makes right, quite obviously this isn't one of those exception, and one must have the power. Yes, Wu Yan can just bide his time and gather up summoning points before summoning a super Kika.S.S team of Xiaojous to support him and have them dominate the world for him while he sit back and enjoy the fruits of their labor. But there are various issues with that choice. First, whether or not one could AMA.S.S the necessary summoning points is one thing, another is whether or not his male honor can remain unscathed as he sponge off them. He can't. Be it fortune or authority, their temptation can't be compared to that of what power can bring him. Emphasis on the word temptation. Wu Yan won't just pursue power blindly. If that box is a trap, then whether or not its promise of power is true, he will strike it down without remorse. Besides Wu Yan, Hinajiku and Mikoto also focused on the power box after a quick glance through the 3 boxes. It goes without saying that Mikoto would prefer power over money or authority, even though she didn't particularly give much attention to power before. She has an ATTI.2 that won't tolerate losing to anyone, and she's a LV5 Esper that would go a fight with people. With the new objective of saving the sisters, the new Mikoto isn't like the one before. She now has a reason to get stronger. After all, how would one save the sisters if they don't possess the necessary strength to do so? As for Hinajiku, her reason is pretty much the same, so she also favors power more than fortune or authority. The 3 set their sights on the box of power. Meanwhile, Akaros is just standing there in a daze. Probably nothing much can catch her attention beside watermelons. Lyran. After being let down by the fact that there seems to be no real treasure here, she's being entranced by the shiny crystal ball rather than the dull and hard boxes. Let's open it and take a look inside, Yan. Mikoto said while she excitedly looked at the boxes. Electricity danced across her hands. Hey now, it's just opening a box, do you really have to use your electricity? That's just him throwing Tsukumai, but honestly speaking he's also looking forward to these boxes. He flinched when he opened it up and saw its content. A ring. Hinajiku and Mikoto said hesitatingly after scrutinizing the plain old black ring. It looks like. Wu Yan said after picking it up and tinkering around with it in no less an uncertain tone than the girls. It seems like a S.P.A.C.E ring of some kind. Try peeking inside. Mikoto is pretty curious at why the master of the ring to rule them all would be able to obtain power the best the world can offer, or something along those braggart lines. Wu Yan is stumped at the moment. Normally when you talk about power in this kind of setting, it is usually some cultivation accelerator, some rare material that can increase dochi, power augmenting battle skills, or some straight out armaments to increase strength. Maybe that's what this ring contains. Add that to its claim of being the best the world can offer, it certainly has his interest now. What kind of material, battle skills, equipment can increase someone's power to that extent? Very soon, his face froze up as he drooped his head down with his bangs covering his eyes. No one could see what he looked like, but judging from the hate seething up from behind him, Hinajiku and Mikoto knows that he is not a happy camper. Even the doughty Kaiko-sama and Railgun took on a very cautious tone when approaching him. They have got to admit, this is the first time they have ever seen Yan being so scary. The hate around him dispersed very quickly and he raised his head. Looking at the ring, his face could be described as being very unperturbed. If one were to ignore the string of around his head. TN, veins popping. What's the matter? Is it empty inside or something? Knowing him, they figured he must have taken some kind of damage for him to exhibit that kind of behavior. It's nothing. Inhaling a deep breath, he calmed down. Tossing around the ring, he continued in a low tone. I don't know if it's empty or not because I can't open this S.H.I.T. Can't open it? Now the girls know why he's so peeved. What do you mean by not being able to open it? That's right, I myself am curious as well, why can't I open it? Clenching his teeth, his face looked like he's so mad he could just swallow down the ring right now. Hinajiku and Mikoto decided it might be best to be silent for a moment. Heaving, he held himself back in better judgment from throwing it on the ground and cast his eyes on the other 2 boxes. A sense of anxiety rose up. If the ring in power box can't be opened, what of that of the other 2, authority and fortune? Don't tell me. Thinking up to here, he opened the other 2 boxes with shaking hands, and as expected, contained within them is a simple white ring and a gold ring respectively. He picked them up after observing them for a bit. He then stayed silent. It can't be, another S.P.A.C.E ring that can't be opened. Just as she finished speaking, a bigger wave of hate surged up from him. She instantly zipped her yapper and stood in a meek manner behind Mikoto. Mikoto didn't say anything and just smiled. How it feels to want to shed tears but can't for want of tears. Fine, a stone room and no treasure, we can deal with that. But why the F.U.C.K would someone put something so deceptive that anyone would kill to get and made it out so that it can't be opened? A mockery. He raised a long sigh as he gazed up. Oh, what he would give to shoot the one who placed the treasure here. Well, this won't last for long because soon he would wish that he can find the person who did this and give him a kiss or 2. It's painful seeing him like that, lamenting to the sky in silence. So, Hinajiku and Mikoto decided to return him to his original state while exchanging whispers. The final decision, Mikoto will give him a taste or 2. TN, how does this compute? I don't even. The 2 exchanged nods. Just as Mikoto is preparing her lightning, she inadvertently noticed something when she glanced over the boxes on the table. She shouted to Wu Yan. Yan. Take a look. The boxes has words inside them. The call pulled him back from immersing in self-wallow. To whoever comes across this ring is no more than an indestructible ring. It is not a.p.a.ce ring, but with it the whole Ilu Empire is yours to command. Wu Yan, Mikoto, and Hinajiku exchanged looks. It would appear the three don't quite bought the statement. How can one own an empire with just one ring? Since this box has words in them, maybe the other boxes have them as well. Let's see. He abandoned thinking further regarding the statement and he let go of the brain power consuming thoughts before turning OT the other boxes. He first took a look at what is written in power. To whoever comes across this ring is indeed a.p.a.ce ring, and if you can open it, what lies within will give you the right to dominate the whole of Silveria. Want to open it? Go find the king of Ilu Empire, he will tell you everything. Find the king. He can't find the word to describe what he is feeling right now, and he harped something and threw a tsukumai before proceeding over to Box of Fortune. To whoever comes across this. My treasure? If you want it, I'll let you have it. Go find it, the key. I left all of my fortune in there. System, can you please confirm one thing for me? Aside from has there been any other transportes? User, there is only one system, and the only one with the ability to accomplish such a feat would be the system alone, and as such other than the user there can't be any other transportee. Then would you please kindly enlighten me as to why the H.E.L.L. did Gold Roger transported to Silveria? Chapter 107. Regardless of whether or not what the boxes said are true, Wu Yan kept the rings. They might be fake, but even if they were fake there's no problem in just keeping them, and what if it were real? Might as well A.S.Assume it to be true than A.S.Assume the opposite. He organized the rings and was thinking about putting them in the bag before something hit him and he sighed before he wore them on his fingers. 3 rings, one of them being A.S.P.A.ce ring, are worn on his hands with 2 on the left and 2 on the right. If he were to go back to his original world, people would probably think of him as a delinquent or just showing off his wealth. Why? Because the rings vary in motifs: gold, silver, gold, just a few more colors, and his hand would be fabulously decorated in prismatic colors. It feels like somehow, I've been screwed over yet again. Well, our gains this time isn't small anyway, no need to be so dispirited. Kaiko-sama patted his shoulders. Maybe she thinks he's too pitiful and thought it would be better for him to count his blessings. I guess you're right, I admit I got a bit greedy. Mikoto can't figure out how Wu Yan's mood can get lifted with only a few words of consolation from Kaiko-sama. Lyran climbed up on top the stone table and observed the crystal ball curiously. Looking and looking, she then reached out and stroked the crystal ball. When she made contact with the crystal ball, it lit up in radiant lights with a buzz. The sudden change made Lyran jump back and fell off the table. Wu Yan, Hinajiku, and Mikoto are surprised, and they didn't care about the change with the crystal ball as they hurriedly caught Lyran. It's lucky they aren't that far from the table, otherwise Lyran would have enjoyed an intimate contact with the dust on the ground. Are you all right? Seeing as Lyran still stunned, Hinajiku took her into her arms and consoled her. She shook her head and signified that she's okay. After Wu Yan and Mikoto confirmed she's okay, they released a sigh of relief and turned over to the crystal ball that acted up. The light show there is slowly solidifying, giving people an impression that something is going to pop out. And then the light flickered and shot upwards, forming a screen in front of Wu Yan and company. Is this some kind of projection? Mikoto wondered out loud in front of the light screen. In this world, she has seen crystal B.A.L.L.S like this many times before, and they are mostly for communication purpose and projections. Wu Yan didn't say anything, he kept his eyes on the light screen. Mikoto showed Hinajiku an angry expression before everyone stared at the light screen. The light screen rippled like water and then they saw it. Various images are starting to appear. So it's projections. As they watched, the images changed in front of their eyes. A normal person, as average as they come, being born inside a normal family and living a normal life. But this person isn't pleased with this kind of unfulfilling life, and so he decided to leave his home and depart on his own journey. On his journey, he saw warriors, he saw magicians, he witnessed dochi, and he witnessed magic. He seemed like he looked up to them, and so he worked hard to get the approval of one warrior and became his disciple. His journey then turned into cultivation. He cultivated his dochi and made it. He trained in battle skills and he excelled in them. Beating everyone's expectation, he turned out to be a super rare genius. Under the tutelage of his mentor he very fast and soon he learned all his master could teach, and Serpa.S. said his master. But he's still not satisfied with this and he set out on another journey. It's just that this time it's not a pure journey, it's also a cultivation trip. He made a lot of friends, exchanged pointers with them and they helped each other out. He also made enemies and screwed over a lot of them, as well as fighting to the death with them at times. The first armament he could remember he got it from an enemy. The second time he got a stronger one, it was also taken from the dead foes. He's not rich, he has to do everything by himself. He slaughtered armies and generals, he cut through thistles and thorns. All who stood before him got eliminated by him. In each fight he kept making breakthroughs after breakthroughs. Finally, he climbed up the totem pole from being a puny weakling to a strong individual burned into the eyes of many. Important families tried recruiting but he rejected them all because he felt that he wasn't strong enough yet. Some of the ones he rejected tried to assassinate him and got the tables turned on them. He showed no mercy because this would only give them more chances to strike back at him. Body could hold him down, not even women of varying hotness, because inside his heart there is only the desire to become stronger. He kept refining and improving his dochi and trained his battle skills, making incessant breakthroughs in abilities. Stronger and stronger he grew. Until a point, he was so strong Body dared mess with him. He's so strong important families tried recruiting him as their protector guardian and begged him to be their mentor. He rejected them all because he feels that he is not strong enough yet. One day, another person emerged. Perhaps one could not call this person a person because he descended from the sky. The guy could destroy mountains with his bare fist and split the earth with his legs, and one slap from him could inflict serious harm onto him. This for him is the first defeat he suffered since many years. This reinforced his internal thought, the thought that he still isn't strong enough. To become even more powerful he shut himself away and swore never to come out until he reached the point where he could defeat the person. An untold amount of time passed and he finally came out. On this day, he sent the door to his cultivation room into oblivion with one punch and he took flight. He located the person from before and fought an epic battle with the person. The battle shook the earth and sky, splitting mountains and seas alike. A battle so epic in proportion the sound could be heard for miles and blood rained down on the earth. The result was another loss on his part. Lying on the ground defeated and tattered with blood painted all over his body, inside his receding consciousness the person told him that if he wanted to defeat him then he still need to improve. He dragged his battered torso back to his cultivation place and rebuilt the door he destroyed before. He understands that he's going to be here for a period of time. Making the cultivation place his home, he rebuilt it with stones and polished it before he went into cultivation once more. An untold amount of time flew by and he emerged again one day. He located the person and fought with him once more. The battle moved earth and shook mountains, remapping the sky and making tsunamis. It was a hard-fought battle where he couldn't tell if it was his hands breaking or his bones creaking, his body and mind went into pure ecstasy. The result was a tie for both sides. But, he's satisfied with this outcome. This meant that from that day onwards, Body is stronger than him. He didn't chase victory and he didn't pursue a beatdown on the other party. He knows, he has finally become a super. And so, he returned home to find his family, but his family weren't there anymore. Hollowness and loneliness filled his heart. He built a faction on the place his family used to be and recruited armies to conquer everything from the north to south in order to fill the empty feeling he has within. With a person such as him, it's unsurprising that his faction grew to become the strongest power on that continent. Of course, this is only for now because soon came two other power that caught up to him. They made an agreement of mutual respect, they would split the land equally between them and no one will mess with each other. Their power finally knew peace. However, this is also another temporary period. One day, an item appeared and shattered any status quo of peace between them. In order to obtain the item, he and the other two factions fought an all-out war. The item is just that alluring. It was so entrancing that the one who fought two battles with him before joined the fray as well. Their powers tied and Body could definitively bring down another until finally they all released everything they have at each other and got wrecked pretty hard. Dragging his dying body he came to his cultivation place and left a magic creature he dominated here to guard the 3 boxes and a crystal ball. After that, he turned into ashes and flew away with the winds. Chapter 108. Slack-jawed. No better words could describe what Wu Yan, Hinajiku, and Mikoto looked like at this moment. Only Lyran, who couldn't understand what's going on, and Ikaros are still looking muddled. The images were blurry, to the extent that they can't get a clear picture of the protagonist inside it. The film didn't have any sound either, that's why they can only fill in the gaps. The gist they got from it is enough to render anyone in a shocked state. If this short film is indeed a true chronicle, then the three didn't dare to continue their train of thoughts. The light screen turned into a ray of light and went back inside the crystal ball, but the three haven't recovered yet. Sis Hinajiku, what happened? Lyran called them back from their stupor, but they didn't respond to Lyran as they exchanged glances. Their thoughts are mutual, that is how unbelievable this thing is. After some time, Wu Yan emitted a bitter laugh before rubbing the 3 rings on his fingers. If what we have seen were true, then this treasure, their route might have been epic. Haha, we have just been here for a few days and we have already stumbled onto such a treasure. Not to mention this film that was recorded G.O.D knows how many years ago. It seems we are destined to be the main characters. He might be smiling as he said this, but he's not fooling anyone with that forced expression of him. He's still pretty surprised deep inside. Understandable, since they just obtained an ancient secret. It's at this moment that Wu Yan realized how the 3 rings might really contain what the boxes say they do. And, this might be a big bad luck charm for them. Wu Yan has an idea what the film was trying to convey along with the messages on the boxes. What ancient secrets the rings hold. Absolutely N.O.Body can know about the rings and their origins. He polished the rings and unconsciously voiced his thoughts out in an unquestionable conviction. But, Hinajuku and Mikoto only nodded in a grim manner, agreeing with what he said. Yan, why don't you store away the rings? Hinajuku is merely pointing out the obvious possibility that someone might recognize the 3 rings. However, Wu Yan grinned while shaking his head. Ignoring how the events in the film is of an unknown period, but first of all, I am not even sure if there's anyone around that knows the purpose of these 3 rings. Furthermore, the rings are adorned in a plain fashion, so I highly doubt if anyone would take a closer look at them. Even so, I might need them to confirm another thing. He didn't point out this last sentence of his. Pondering for a bit more, he took off the black power ring and golden fortune rings, leaving only the white authority ring on his finger. It might be better to be a bit more prudent, 1 ring should do. Puzzled, Mikoto and Hinajuku glanced at Wu Yan. Even if they are familiar with how he ticks, they still can't figure out what he's thinking. Soon, the 2 didn't think much of it and turned their heads. The 2 girls are sure his actions are backed up by his reason. Such is the trust they have in him. Storing the rings away, that settled their objectives here. He breathed a relaxed sigh before turning to look at the boxes and crystal ball on the table. Alright, let's head back, I don't want to stay in this place any longer. Mikoto said while saging her shoulders. Somehow, although this trip was shorter than the one back in the Yakai cave, she felt that this round was more exhausting than the one before. Hinajuku nodded to her statement. Seeing as the 2 girls want to go back already and there was no longer any reason for staying here, Wu Yan nodded as well. Let's go. Hinajuku grabbed Lyran while Mikoto led Ikaros and they walked out of the stone room. Wu Yan glanced over the 3 boxes' grave manner before lowering his head in contemplation. When he lifted his head, he steeled his gaze and materialized Nito no Shana before slowly drawing it out. The 3 boxes and crystal ball probably shouldn't be left behind. With a swing, a resplendent sword beam was released and it flew towards the 3 boxes and crystal ball on the stone table. The objects mentioned were destroyed while leaving the stone table unharmed through unknown manipulation. Mission accomplished. Brandishing it, he sheathed the sword before catching up with Hinajuku and Mikoto. Standing at the teleportation stone, Wu Yan and company looked around the vacant place before falling into silence. So, how do we get out? Hinajuku voiced out what everyone was thinking. They came here with the treasure hunting group and rode on the airship provided by the auction firm people as well as being led by them. H.E.L.L. Let's not talk about needing a guide, even when they are down there they still had to wait for other people to lead the way. Now they're stumped on how to return. The auction firm's airship is still here, but, ignoring the fact that it's questionable whether any one of them knew how to operate the thing, they don't even know the direction in which they should fly in. Wu Yan has an amusing expression on his face. All the calculation he has done and he hadn't accounted for how to find the way back. Mikoto sighed before looking at him and said in an indistinct manner. Say, Yan, you think we should go and fly the airship? We could if we knew how to operate one. He said in an awkward manner. Hinajuku wryly laughed before focusing her gaze on him. Yan, why not buy an ability that allows you to fly an airship? He stayed silent and kept his gaze on her until she turned her head to the side with a tinge of red blush before he forced a laugh. If I had the points, why not just exchange a more useful ability? I don't even know how many times I would be flying an airship in this lifetime. Even if this act wasn't wasteful and that he had the points to buy whatever the H.E.L.L. he wants, he still wouldn't fly an airship back home. Everyone died in this treasure hunting trip. If only they made it back, then it would definitely arouse the suspicion of many. If they went back in a low-key manner, then that would be better, since they didn't particularly stand out like a drop of water in an ocean mixed into a large crowd of people where N.O.Body particular took note of their presence. What if they were to fly an airship back? The scenario would probably be something like this: being noticed, investigated, found, and then ganged up on. Well, if you're so smart, why don't you give a suggestion? How are they going to get back otherwise? This is some G.O.D forsaken place with no legend on this map. He cried when he heard her and took out a crystal-made scroll, the escape scroll from before. He continued in a helpless manner. Looks like we have no choice but to use this. Hinajuku and Mikoto looked like they suddenly remembered something and hammered their palm before taking out their scroll while awkwardly giggling. We almost forgot about this. He rolled his eyes at them when he saw their we're-saved face while cursing inside. That's the tool he bought for life insurance, to escape in dire times. And now, they have to use it to go home. What can he say but feel like somebody gave him the short end of the stick? Town return scroll transfers the user back to a previous determined coordinate. The coordinates are decided by the user before use. One-time item points 10,000. That's right, a scroll of return. Every game have them. This is Wu Yan's failsafe, the one he bought before. This item is really good for escape and to protect their lives. If there is any danger, just use this and they would be sent back to their designated coordinates. What else could guarantee their safety and escape route any better than these? He bought the scrolls before heading out and gave everyone one each. They set the supply town as the return coordinate. In this manner, should any danger arise they can immediately return to the small supply town. He figured they might need to use this item as a way of escaping danger and that after finding the treasure they wouldn't need to use them. But surprise surprise, they finally used it? As a way of cutting short their journey home. What can be any more sad and pathetic than this? Thinking up to this point, he felt so dejected he didn't have the strength to tear up the scroll. Chapter 109. TL literally means pushing down or push down something, it's actually shortened language for sex so, yeah. Also, when I googled the two words, what comes up is a bunch of Chinese memes about pushing down and lolis, perhaps because it's related to the 3 perks of a loli: soft, mellow voice, easy to push down, also contains spa.r.s.e amount of NSFW material, so I don't recommend googling the two words at work. Good morning, Master. Hazy, Wu Yan could hear these kind of sound as he pried his eyes open. That was when he saw it? A twin peak of such scrumptious volume, swaying in front of him with an approximate distance of 10 cm. Am I dreaming? If so, please don't wake up. With his eyes half opened, the first impression he got when he saw the scrumptious feast before him is that he is still sleeping. Akaros is currently leaning on top of him as she curiously observed her master. She sensed that her master was awake, and right after she gave him a good morning the master seemed to have entered into a strange state. Perhaps it's because her voice was too small. Akaros tilted her head while scrutinizing Wu Yan. After she's sure he's awake she decided to greet him again. In actual fact, Wu Yan is wide awake after that mumble just now. But when he saw the twin peaks of fabulous glory he turned slack-jawed and couldn't muster a proper response. When Akaros called out again, only then did he manage to recover. He figures it is Akaros who came to his room, and the big bunnies before him belonged to Akaros for sure. Gulp. He couldn't help gulping his saliva. Instead the silent room, this sound was quite audible and it elicited more curiosity from Akaros before he awkwardly laughed. Resisting the urge to turn into a wolf, he pushed Akaros away while heaving and grinning. Akaros, could you please not wake me up in that manner? I'm afraid I won't be able to hold myself back from. Unable to hold back from. Tilting her head, she looked into his eyes. Although it was still her expressionless face, he could see within her eyes that she wants to inquire as to what kind of thing he won't be able to hold back. This made him choke on his words, unable to blurt anything out. Oh yes, where is Hinajiku and Mikato? With no other alternatives, he diverted the subject with a helpless intonation to his words. He also tugged at the blanket to cover up a certain area that won't listen to his brain. We are quite all right actually. A voice that is definitely not Wu Yan or Akaros resounded. It disrupted what Akaros was going to say and made his frozen smile stiff. Like a machine he slowly turned his head around. What he saw standing at the door was a Mikato draped in dark aura with her head lowered and her face covered by bangs and a smiley Hinajiku. Why, yo, good morning Hinajiku and Mikato. Smiling and rising his hand to greet them, he could have said as greeting them, if not because he's sweating fountains. Too bad though, Kaiko-sama and Railgun has no intention of reciprocating his gesture. Standing there, the two girls stared holes into him while ignoring Akaros. I was thinking why I don't see Akaros anywhere every time I wake up in the morning, so it's because she went sleeping somewhere else. No, it's please I can explain. His face is basically drenched in sweat. His grin might as well look like a broken one, even fugalier than crying as he pleaded to Hinajiku and Mikato. Hinajiku and Mikato didn't say anything and turned silent. He feels even more anxious at this. He would rather the two girls beat the s.h.i.t out of him, at least then he would know everything's still okay, but now that the situation has become like this, he's truly scared. Hinajiku, Mikato. Yan, you big idiot. Hinajiku Mikato roared before they turned around and walked away, leaving 2 drops of tears there. S.H.I.T just hit the fan. His heart sunk and he became absent-minded. It looks like the two girls are really hurt now. Who could blame them? The person they love spent a night together with another woman inside a room. Anyone would misunderstand. Master, is it Akaro's fault? Akaros watched the whole thing go down from the side, so she asked while squirming around, seemingly upset. This is the first time he has actually seen any kind of emotion reflected on her face. He breathed in deep before continuing to rub her head. Akaros, this is not your fault. Don't beat yourself up over it. At least that's what she said, but any reasonable human could tell she hasn't let the matter go, judging by that anxious face of hers. She is probably criticizing herself. He sighed and then looked at Akaros and the teardrops on the ground. A sense of pain surged inside him. Hinajuku and Mikoto, will they not care about me anymore after this? Mulling over the matter, he felt like there's an increasing chance that they might just do that, and he started panicking. In a way, his present state is basically him overreacting as a result of seeing Hinajuku and Mikoto expressing that kind of behavior for the first time. It never crossed his mind that he could have settled the matter if he just properly explained himself. Well, if he did, then what is going to happen probably wouldn't have happened. With a grim face, his body might be here, but his heart has gone to chase after Hinajuku and Mikoto. He has this intense urge to go and check up on how Hinajuku and Mikoto are doing. But he's afraid that after going to check up on them, he would only hurt them even further. Clenching and relaxing his fist, he repeated the action. He then looked at Akaros, who dimmed down. Finally, he made a crazy decision. Akaros saw a resolute Wu Yan looking at her as if he has resolved himself to something grand. It temporarily stunned her. Akaros, stop deprecating yourself, I am going to solve everything, will you please lend me your help? As if he just made some kind of breakthrough, Akaros, who saw this beaming Wu Yan, looked at him a daze before her expression returned to her usual deadpan manner. Standing outside Hinajuku and Mikoto's room, he knocked on their door. Hinajuku, Mikoto, it's me, open up. Pausing for a bit, the room remained motionless. After a brief while, a small mule came out while sobbing. Go away, I don't want to see you. He showed a face like he was expecting this as he grabbed the door's handle. Activating his ability, a spark flashed and the door opened up and he went inside. He saw two girls hiding themselves in their blanket. The only visible part would be their tear-stained eyes looking back at him from the edges of the blanket. They even ran back into the same room to cry. He retorted silently before waltzing in. When the girls saw this, they screamed at him. Get out. Wu Yan only smiled. With an ever-beaming smile he responded to them. But Hinajuku and Mikoto felt a sudden sense of bad foreboding. What are you planning on doing? Stammered Hinajuku and Mikoto as they retreated inside their blanket due to the feeling of something bad that's going to happen. They have clearly forgotten that they were posseed with Wu Yan. He didn't say anything, he only took a small pouch and blew it towards their face. A cloud of powder floated straight for the two unprepared girls. What are you doing? Hinajuku and Mikoto rubbed their face while screeching in fury. Suddenly, they lost strength in their body and fell down on their bed. What is this? What did you do? What are you going to do? Hinajuku shot the question out, but Wu Yan only responded with the sound of his approaching footsteps. It is at this moment that Hinajuku and Mikoto knew their f.u.c.ked. They can't move their body, Esper power, Shiro Sakura, the two girls can't use any of them. Add to this the weird direction in which things are progressing, they are definitely panicking now. Listening to the footsteps, the two girls knew Wu Yan is slowly approaching them. At the same time, their hearts are screaming. This isn't right. This isn't how things are supposed to proceed. Alas, the ensuing development is really beyond their expectation. Grabbing Mikoto under the eyes of the alarmed girls, he placed her at Hinajuku's side. Looking at their face, he sighed before taking a more serious face. Hinajuku, Mikoto, become my women. Chapter 110. TL, double chapters. Because erections don't last 2 days. Hinajuku, Mikoto, be my women. 'Twas a stunned Hinajuku. 'Twas a stunned Mikoto. The whole room fell into silence after the extremely shocking words uttered by Wu Yan. As if time stood still, one thing is for certain. Hinajuku and Mikoto broke down. Even with the super thick face he has, after declaring something like that and seeing their reaction, he can't help but feeling like running away. It was only something he thought of and subsequently planned on doing with his overreacting brain. Something along the lines of disabling Kaiko-sama and railgun and then crawl up in them. What wicked means, and how incredibly exciting. Even Wu Yan is admiring himself. Dam.n, why didn't he have the reckless B.A.L.L.S to this earlier? Do you understand what you are spouting right now? If she weren't feeble and couldn't move at all, Mikoto might have went full Sparta and electrocuted everyone with no delineation between foes and allies. H.E.L.L, not just Mikoto, even Hinajuku is blushing red with rage and Ambara.S. meant to the extent that she could just die. Brazenly standing in front of the two girls and spouting something like making them his women. If it were any normal girl, they would have given him a big ol slap to the face. What Kaiko-sama would give to be able to draw her Shiro Sakura and shank the bastard. That should teach him what Nozo no Dai means. Maybe it's because of this that Wu Yan decided to disable them first? Well, at least he has the foresight for this. Now, whether or not he could live to see another day, however. In response to Mikato, he laughed bitterly as he took in the sight of two girls flushed red, due to Mbara.s.ment or anger or a mix of both. He stayed silent for a bit before reaching out and caressing Hinajuku and Mikato's faces while softly continuing. I know what I'm saying is asking a bit too much. No, it's too much, but really I have no choice. With an upset face, he continued, ignoring the two girls who got even redder by his touch. You see, I have no choice. I don't want to choose between the two of you, and I don't want to see any one of you hurt. I can't ignore your feelings as well. That's why there's only this next strategy. Lifting his head, he resolutely declared. I don't care what happens, you can hate me, beat me, or scold me, but I won't give up any one of you girls. Done with that, he waved and emitted a blast of air to close the door before turning back to Hinajuku and Mikato. What are you doing to do? The sound of the door slamming shut was pretty clear. When the girls heard this, they flinched their body as a dark feeling started crawling up inside them. It's like they are going to lose something very important to themselves. Breathing in deep, he hoped this will calm down his nervousness. But doing so only made him even more nervous. Can't be helped, looking back at his life. In the 20-something years he has lived, he has been a devout magician, in other words a virgin. Now, he's going to make a job change. The target, two shoujos that used to be the 2D idols of his dream, what's more, there's two of them. An exciting first-time experience right in front of him. As a cherry boy, how can he not be nervous about it? He placed his trembling hands on their bodies. And then, throwing all caution to the wind, he did away with their clothes in a rapid manner. You, what are you doing? Stop. Hiya. You pervert. No, don't. Don't remove, that piece definite shouldn't, Don't. No. The two girls' pleas for mercy notwithstanding, he utilized a speed he didn't know he had before to strip them bare. And soon, two beautiful pristine pearly white body appeared before his eyes. Gawking at the two exquisite figure before him, he gulped violently. Even so, his saliva did not stop, as they flooded his oral cavity. Gulping and gulping, he couldn't stop in time, and a strain of saliva dripped down the corner of his mouth. His nasty hog appearance is of course clear as day to Hinajuku and Mikato. They didn't think much of it because their brains entered a hazy state when they recognized that their bodies are now in full view for Wu Yan. On the other hand, a part of his body has come so hard it hurts, his pants can barely hold it back anymore. Without much thought, he put on his birthday suit as well. Eyes popping, smoke coming out of their head as they watched this whole thing. It did little to stop their Mbara.s.ment and anger, especially when the nasty object appeared in front of them. Everything happened so fast, the two girls didn't get any chance to say anything. Now that mutual trust has been established, he heaved and dived straight for Hinajuku. Feeling the weight pressing down on her, Hinajuku finally panicked. She wants to push him away, but she just couldn't muster the strength, even her insides felt weak. With no other alternatives, she can only beg from the bottom of her heart. Yan, please don't, you. Being SFX for sobbing or mewling. Bending over, he put a cork in her pleadings with a very fast blitzkrieg on her clenched teeth and seized her tongue with his, capturing it. He then started a dance with it. NHGG. They exchanged saliva and Hinajuku released herself to sink into the euphoric French kissing. She even closed her eyes in the process. The smooching TSKSTK sounds didn't stop ringing. After that exchange, he felt unsatisfied and he reached out his demonic claws and grabbed onto Kaiko-sama pet.I.te breast. She instantly opened her eyes wide in shock and returned from her stupor. Feeling his movements and her body's strange reactions, she turned deep red, so bashful and angry she could die. His first impressions, 1, soft, and 2, so small. Well, Kaiko-sama isn't in the A-cup angst group for nothing. F.U.C.K. If it's small, at least it's better than nothing. There is still a long journey ahead of them and plenty of chances to slowly develop them. Holding that kind of thought, he cupped onto the two tiny white bunnies, and while still maintaining what he's doing with his mouth, he started moving his fingers and fondled them. Boobs. Ugh. Following his movements, Hinajuku's body became more and more sensitive and the surging sense of happiness became even more intense. Under its influence, the light in her eyes started drifting away. Indubitably, she's turned on now. Not satisfied with just conquering one area, the hand after sating itself changed targets, he moved one of his hands, down and down it goes. MPPH. Don't know where she got the strength, but Hinajuku arched her body up in an intense manner and then she fell back down. She can't stop the feeling she's having as it grew and grew while she lost further control over herself and sunk deeper, unable to come back up. At a certain point, he removed himself from her lips and looking at her aroused manner, he grinned in a satisfied way. He retrieved his hands that were fondling the S.P.A.C.E at the center between her legs. Along with his hands came liquid with dubious scent on them. It is time. Stopping all movements, he hoisted her up onto him before concentrating his efforts on ABS and slowly pushing up into her. It rubbed against her inside before it hit an obstacle. He breathed in and pushed harder. Ah! She felt intense pain coming from her bottom and she moaned in pain while tensing up. She grabbed onto him with the strength that came back to her since an unknown period of time before. Her tears won't stop flowing. It hurts so much, you. Flowed the waterworks. After the pain subsided, what replaced them was a euphoric one. She knew that after this, her everything belonged to the young man before her. He's also panicking when he saw her crying face. He rubbed away her tears in a frantic manner and then tried to kiss away her pain. When felt what he was trying to do, a sense of happiness flashed by her and the pain slowly receded. What came after that is a feeling of electric coursing through her and then an abnormal feeling of emptiness. And so, she inadvertently twisted her body. Receiving her message, or at least what he interpreted of that. He grinned and started going to town. Part 6 of the series ends here. If you enjoyed it, please give us a like and subscribe so we can be motivated to make even better videos in the future.